3, 2, 1, showtime!
CO, hello, I'm Cade, and welcome to Double Feature Movie Club. It's the 18th episode, and we'll be talking about the movies The Kids Are All Right and Wildlife. Those are our two movies that we're talking about. Two family dramas, I would say. And I'm joined this week with Diane, as always, and Ava, one of our fans and a good friend of Diane's. And I've enjoyed having you, Ava. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. I love being here. So it's better than talking to the screen while I'm watching you.
Yeah.
Nobody hearing me.
Exactly. But you do comment a lot on our things and everything. And is this your second time or third time? What is it? Second.
Two.
Okay.
Second, yeah.
We're starting the theme of your here when we talk about Annette Bening movies, I think is our because she was
she wasn't one of the other ones, but she was.
I mean, also Paul Dano and
yes.
So real themes here, yeah.
No, you picked well. Diane told me you kind of the movies you thought I'd like or suggested them, and for the ones I sit in on, and I thought you nailed it.
Good. There was a central theme in these movies that was unplanned. I really didn't plan, but I mean, there's obviously the I don't know, infidelity or whatever, I guess you would say from the that was a sort of central thing that I didn't really realize, but yeah. But it's a family, both of them are family dramas going in. That's sort of what I was planning was some sort of.
Well, according to statistics, most families do have infidelity. What is it, 70%, something like that. So it's kind of, I didn't even think of that. I just thought of family.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Yeah. No. Well, Diane, how are you this week? Oh.
I'm great, and Ava's the only person I know who would know that kind of statistic. And Ava, I will tell you, Cade, this go round when he put the movies together and convinced people they should be on the podcast, he did a really good job of selecting movies to individual taste, with the exception of me. I have to watch them all.
Well, you're just stuck with them all. You can't. You can't pick them just for you.
That's right. And sometimes it's like Tuesday or Wednesday before I've really gotten over it.
Yeah.
Last week was the toughest week for me. Diane and I have, similar taste. And last week I told her I had to literally kind of go out and come back in, because. But it was the animal cruelty for me. It's like I actually found I don't even remember the names anymore. What was I didn't watch the first one, but
Killing
I had
of a
watched
Sacred Deer.
The second one.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch that one. It was the other one
The
that
Lobster.
I started. And
The
when it
Lobster
got
one.
to the dog, Cade, I don't know if you remember, but the dog.
Uh-huh.
There's an almost dog thing in one of these movies tonight. When it got to the dog, even though it wasn't realistic, I couldn't take it anymore, so I dropped out. But it was even difficult to listen to you talk about them, so I would duck out and come back in and duck out. But I'm a wuss. What can I say?
And that was well into the movie too. That's what we were saying last week. That is.
Yeah, I made it pretty far. I did make it farther than I thought, but I found it very interesting. That's why I hung in there. I thought, it's different, but just the whole. Well, I almost turned it off with the first scene. You guys all thought it was funny. I did not. I'm like, oh my God, why did I just have to watch that?
Mm-hmm.
That
Kate,
first
do you
scene.
remember the movie? I don't know, remember what it was called, but I saw the preview of it. It was kind of a I don't know if it was a violent movie I went to see, but it wouldn't have been like this. But the preview of the movie where two guys one's on stage and focusing on the guy sitting in the chair, and he's focusing on him really, really hard, like mentally, and the guy's head explodes.
Oh.
That's the trailer. And the guy's head explodes all over the place. Just gruesome. And the person I was with and I just looked at him and go, why did I have to see that? I don't know why I had to see that. I didn't come to see that. And that's how I felt with that first scene in that movie. It's like, but I think, Diane, you nailed it. It was meant to disturb you. And it's like, that's not why I watch movies. I know a lot of people watch movies to be disturbed, but I don't.
Yeah.
But the more after we talked last week about that first scene, and Cade really talked about how complicated that had to be to shoot.
Yeah.
I really got to thinking about how in the world did they do that? I was like, wow. I mean, I know they're trained donkeys. But still.
But and I don't want to know, because they're, back in the day, they would have actually killed an animal.
Yeah.
Shoot a scene like that back in the day.
Yeah.
And when he fell, like, I was sure it was like what you said about him falling, like it was a trained donkey. They might have even sped it up. What was surprising to me is it stayed there, frozen.
Yes.
That was what weirded me out. It's like, they usually cut real quick.
Yes.
Because I'm sure the animal gets back up. But that scene, I don't know how they got it to look like it stayed there. But anyway, and here I am talking about it.
Part of me wonders, like, it couldn't have been like a mixture of a dummy. Because I've really thought about that scene about how they had to do that. It could have, I guess it could have been some sort of dummy situation at some point. Like, because it did, you're right, it stayed there. And that was kind of like.
But it didn't look like they cut away.
No.
I don't know. Did they ever explain why she shot the donkey? Like, was it her brother? Or
it didn't. I would imagine it was some loved one, wouldn't you think so? And like, she didn't want them to be like, kind of put them out of their misery, is the way that I interpreted it. But it never really kind of goes back, and it doesn't really even tie into directly to the themes.
I thought that it was probably a wife, right?
Oh, like getting like vengeance or something.
He left her to become a donkey and left her alone, which was deadly in this movie. So that's what I thought it was. So Ava, you probably never want to go see Nope, by that Jordan Peele movie, because
what's it called?
It's called Nope.
What's it called? Nope.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling Diane.
You definitely don't. I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, like, yeah.
When I read the description of that movie, I was like, wait a minute, because the genre on your list is comedy or something like that, comedy something, and I'm like, this description doesn't match up to that genre, so I'm going to go by the description from now on. Genre, not the genre. Cade, can I ask you something though before we can I change the subject real quick?
Sure.
Because I've been meaning to ask you. Diane goes, ask Cade this. Did you see the documentary, The Last Hollywood Stars, I think it's called, on HBO Max? I have not watched it, but I've really wanted to, with Ethan Hawke's doing like the Paul Newman, right? Yeah. I thought of you because it's I thought it to me it was done much differently than any other documentaries I've seen. I've seen quite a few, but he do you know how he did it? Like there was this actors. Big huge because there's this big huge group of tapes that he taped like for a biography or something, but he burned them. Paul Newman burned them, but there were transcriptions of them. Yes. And so Ethan had these big name actors, his pal George Clooney and so on and so forth, read the transcripts, but he also comments as he goes along and how he relates to Paul Newman. And it was very, very interesting. So I'd be curious when you do see it out of it. I enjoyed it. And it's long, but my interest is like 6 hours long or something like that. Yeah. So it's multiple episodes, right? Is that how it's broke up? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've wanted to. I was fascinated by that, and in the trailer, it kind of told all that out, and I'm like, I would like to see that and everything. I mean, and it's that does look very fascinating. It's just one of the many things that's on my list of that I need to. And it's watch. I had it on my list to watch on Friday because I wanted to start watching it because Ava spoke so highly of it, and I got stuck in the Armie Hammer documentary. Did you watch the Armie Hammer documentary? Yes.
Oh my God, that is a little higher on my list.
That's a very strange family. I mean, it gets into the family, lore, and I don't even want to call it lore. They just it goes in that family.
It's a lore crime, really.
And they're one of the wealthiest families in the country, and from great grandpa on, and just the family itself, you can kind of see why Army has some issues.
Yeah, and so Army's aunt, right, is interviewed. Is that who it is, or something?
Yeah, she is. She's interviewed in it, or his dad's sister, and but then there's also all this other information that's been available forever, and this documentary just kind of brings it all together, because like their Army's grandfather, I guess, murder someone. I mean, there's all kinds of just the stories are incredible. And it wasn't I think it was 3 episodes. There may be more. I don't know. But I wanted to see it because I actually saw that come up on Twitter when that Effie had started posting. And of course, it blew up in like minutes. And so in reading all this, I was like, oh my gosh, this can't be. And sure enough, I mean, they have some other, they don't have her. She's in one little part of it, but she didn't want to be part of the documentary. She felt like she's already been, exploited enough. And then, but they did talk to her lawyer, which is that Stein lady. But anyway, they did have some other ex-girlfriends, though, that had
accusations,
set for interviews and said, he absolutely, this is the way whenever she started publishing all of these screenshots of his text, they were like, absolutely, he does that. That's crazy. This is the way he talks. And some of the things he did to them, and how, I think what was most interesting to me about it was how manipulative he was with these women. That he convinced them, to kind of put them under his spell, in a sense. Yeah. And I think, and Abe, I don't, about you, but we all have met men in our lives that kind of have that ability, and you learn really young to run the other way if you see one, but
when you see crazy coming across the street.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what Oprah used to say.
Yeah.
Or someone on Oprah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He evidently has that kind of charisma. So
did they go into what's going on with him now? Did they kind of, because he's like down in like some Caribbean country right now, and he's like, that's one of those crazy things. That's the newest sort of revelation of this, is he's like a concierge at just some hotel in like Aruba or something.
Oh, yeah. And they haven't got.
And because he
didn't talk about that,
because he's like, been dispelled from Hollywood and everything, and supposedly, I mean, that whole thing is like he's, I don't know, been cut off or something from family, and so he's like down there just working as like a concierge is the story right now, and there's been evidence of that, and photos of him, and that's where he is, and which is crazy because he's from this wealthy family, this incredibly wealthy family.
Incredibly wealthy, I think. A couple of the actors that they interviewed on this were pretty cynical in that, they felt like that once the investigation is stopped, which it may have already been stopped, that eventually Hollywood will come back because he makes the money.
He's also incredibly talented. I mean, there's no, I mean, like, and that's sort of the shame of all that as well. On top of that is like, it would be a lot easier. I mean, because like, if we could just throw away that, like, whatever, he's not a good actor anyways. But, oh God, there's been several things that I've seen him in that's just like, he's incredibly talented. But at the same time, oh my goodness. Bizarre. I mean, it ranges from incredibly bizarre behavior, which is what the tabloids focus in on, is the sort of bizarre things. But there's some heinous accusations too. I
think it's fascinating. There's more and more characters like that, right? Real life characters who have done just horrific things, but they're still really popular and people still stick up for them, and they say, yeah, but they're talented. It's like, well, so what? He raped a 13-year-old. What do you mean? It's just the psychology of it is so fascinating, like Michael Jackson and you could go on and on, honestly. Him, I remember that as well. It's really fascinating psychologically, but very sad. But I think people, if you take Michael Jackson, he was so young, right? And his life was so bizarre, and his family life was cruel, more than likely. Like, how do you come out normal from any of that? Again, it's not an excuse, and it's not, you can't excuse it, but just the forgiveness of, because they're talented, right? Well, they gave us this, so it's okay they killed somebody. Or it's okay they raped somebody. It's like, not me, it's fascinating. It really is.
It's fascinating of it's as long as you're sort of making the money. I mean, I think that there's that stuff doesn't come through, like the Kevin Spacey stuff. That doesn't come through until his star has fallen from already. He's not the box office draw. That wouldn't have probably been a story, or would have been interesting enough in like the 90s or even early 2000s during his heyday. Yeah. But like now it's like, okay, now's the appropriate time to sort of we can
well,
get rid of
that was
him.
part of a whole movement, right? Mm-hmm. That was different in that whole thing.
Mm. Well, same thing with Weinstein.
I keep waiting for them to come back too. Once that dies down, right? They'll be back. Go ahead, Diane. What were you going to say?
Well, it's the same thing with Weinstein. I mean, it was when they were on the downside, where he wasn't, their company wasn't doing as well, and he wasn't creating, Oscar-winning movies every year, and he had kind of lost his power. Yeah. That's when people felt like that they could come forward. Before that, though, he had too much power.
You can't say anything about him when they're at their height. Like Bill Cosby, it wouldn't have been a news story. It's like you can't, when they were up at a certain point, it's just like, there's too much money riding on them.
They're untouchable.
Yes. And it's not just them. It's all of the people that's underneath them that are making money off of that person. We're not going to kick him down because there's just too much, my money's riding on it. Yeah.
Well, John McEnroe, they never kicked him out of a tournament until he was on the backside of his career. And then they did it. And they, his behavior, they should have kicked him out long ago if they were going to kick him out on behavior.
Yeah.
They should have, and I was a fan of his. I loved watching him play tennis. But then all of a sudden he's not ranked in the world and he's, acting up. Okay, bye. You're not making us money anymore, so we don't care. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is the shame, I mean, but then everyone, pats themselves on the back for doing a good thing. And it's like, there's probably a lot of people that are stars right now that are just what these stories are waiting and just shelved for the opportunity to come through. And it's like, then they get to do it again and pat themselves on the back. Well, great.
Sorry, that took a dark turn. Me too.
So, if you have Discovery Plus, I would recommend watching, the story of Armie Hammer, just from the family history, and there's some sensational parts to it. Yeah, we've all heard that. But
it's Discovery Plus.
It's Discovery Plus.
That's kind of their perspective on things. Yeah.
But the part that I really enjoyed was the family history and how they came to be wealthy, and how each generation has changed. Got more depraved, I should say. Yeah. In a sense. But they have so much money, they can get away with anything.
Yeah.
They can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah. And then you sort of see, like, you watch, like, Sorry to Bother. Did you watch Sorry to Bother You, either one of you? Did you ever see that movie? It's a really great movie, but it's Armie Hammer's the villain in the movie. And he plays like this billionaire, like kind of entrepreneur guy, and it's just it's hilarious. It's his best role in my opinion, and it's like not too far off. You kind of know now that but it's
about him.
It's kind of about him.
Well, actually, he was probably just mimicking his dad or his granddad. I mean, in reality.
Yeah.
Because that's what he grew up with.
Yeah.
That was his normal. I mean, until he was like 7 or 8 years old, they lived in a Caribbean island. They didn't live in the States at all. So, he played, I don't want to say himself, but he played his dad or his grandpa.
Yeah.
That's who I think he really emulated in that. I have to tell you, my guilty pleasure is The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I love that movie. If I was a classic '60s movie, I love the costuming. I love the production, the cars, everything about it. And he's in it,
Yes.
obviously, but I don't care. I will still watch that bad boy again and again.
It's such a shame that didn't become a franchise. That was like one of those ones. It was
supposed
supposed to. It was definitely. I mean, they didn't do like the whole tease that like a lot of them do. Like it rests on its own, but like it was like if it had been successful, there would have been like 3 or 4 of those. You can tell. Like,
there would have.
Yeah.
And they would have all been great. I just love that movie. If you get a chance to watch it, you will love it. You will absolutely love it. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were so accurate in their production of a 1965 to 69 kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. You would just love it.
I'm writing it down.
Yes. And he plays a Russian, right? He plays the Russian.
He plays Ilya Kuryaki.
Yes.
Kuryakin? Yeah.
And then Henry Cavill plays the American, right? That's the
Yes.
So they're all doing different accents. They're not doing their actual accent.
They're not doing their own accent.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because when I watched it, I never paid attention to see if they stayed in those accents the entire time. Usually I do. It's like jarring when they fall out of it, but I never noticed that.
And it's kind of a fun, kind of campy, kind of, yeah. So, I mean, it's less, I mean, I do think they both leaned into the accent. It's kind of, but that was kind of the point of the film. It was meant to kind of be kind of glossy. It's really, highly stylized, and it's great. Well, cool. I think we can jump in. I was going to mention that, that I went, one of the reasons I was late today was I ended up stopping by a record shop because it had a little thing that said that there was a Labor Day special and sale, and so I'm like, oh gosh, well I got to stop there now because of that, and I got a bunch of records. They had a new section that was a new wave synth pop section, and I died.
Oh no! This is his favorite.
So I had to get I got quite a bit of things. I don't know if you guys are interested.
Are you talking?
We do not have the same taste in music, Cade. I'm sorry.
He actually has an excellent playlist. Mm-hmm. He really does. So
I was so ecstatic that they had they had Erasure. They had Erasure, which you can hardly ever find here. Any Erasure albums. It's just the dance mix of Chains of Love, with a bunch of different dance mixes. So I was pretty happy about that, and a bunch of other things. I won't bore you with that, but I was pretty happy about the fact. And that just came in. They were just like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of these ones that just came in that were kind of 80s things, and so I was like, oh my goodness, Erasure, altered. So there's altered images.
I love the vintage paper bag and the cover art.
Yes, yeah. There's altered images. Was one of another.
Right.
Yeah. This is Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. That's Relax. Frankie Goes to Hollywood is the name of the band, but yes.
Yeah.
Relax. Yeah. Information Society. So got quite a few. This is the dance mix, which I have How to Be a Zillionaire, but this is the dance mix of that. So I've been pretty happy. 2 Wang Chung albums, a lot of cool stuff there. I was pretty
Wang
happy.
Chung tonight
for you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you. I am.
Yes.
He's gonna Wang Chung tonight.
Yes. Yeah, everybody Wang Chung tonight. Whatever that means. Yeah. Great. Well, thought I would share that I was very happy, and I told them I was very happy. It was just one row that they added to the thing, but I was looking through the whole thing. I'm like, where's all the new wave stuff and everything? Because there wasn't any of those. They have a rock section, and typically it's hard to find where they put new wave stuff, because it's like it's sometimes in a rock thing, and then sometimes it's in their kind of pop section, or if they had some of them have like an 80s, they'll go by decades, and that's a little bit easier because new wave doesn't really fit. And then kind of some of them were kind of punkish, so it's like early punk, and so there's not unless there's a hard new wave synth pop section, which I'm happy that they had, because also
Probably
I'm sure
the only record. Look at where was this? Where did you?
it's Josie's Records, which it does.
Oh, okay.
They're in a few. They're in Dallas as well. They're kind of a regional chain. There's like I think 3 of them around, and
Probably
3 or
the
4.
only one in Oklahoma that has a section just for the music you love.
Yeah, I was pretty happy. It's the only one that I've seen. They also had huge art of a few things. They had like a Howard Jones and they had a Psychedelic Furs big square mounted thing of their of one of their albums, and I was like, oh, that's tempting me to get a giant thing, but of print of that. But I need to go through there. But then I was like, I'm running late. I have to get to it. I can't. I was.
At least now we know where you were at.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, enough of that. We'll jump into our movies. Our movies that we're discussing today, like I said up top, are The Kids Are All Right from 2010 and then Wildlife from 2018. Our first one is The Kids Are All Right from 2010, and Diane will be walking us through the plot of that, and we will discuss the movie right after our little musical interlude. There you go.
Thank you, Cade. Okay, so let's talk about The Kids Are All Right. This is a comedy drama that was released in 2010, right, Cade? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The movie itself is about Nicole, or Nick, who's played by Annette Bening, and Jules Allgood, played by Julianne Moore, are a married same-sex couple living in Los Angeles area. Nick is an obstetrician and Jules is a housewife who is starting a landscape design business. Each have given birth to a child using the same sperm donor. And these 2 kids, Laser is a 16-year-old son, and their daughter, who is 18-year-old Joni. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, so anyway, their 16-year-old son and 18-year-old daughter want to meet their biological father. So they track down the sperm donor, who is played by Mark Ruffalo. I love Mark Ruffalo in this movie. Anyway, from that point on, that's when the fun begins. These kids have tracked down their biological father and the impact that it has on this family. It's a wonderful movie, and it was nominated for several awards, and I think Annette Bening, who plays Nick, she actually won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy or a Musical. So, I think she was nominated for an Oscar as well. Wonderful, wonderful movie. I highly recommend it. So let's talk about it. I don't want to give anything away without you guys blessing.
No, yeah. So what did you think about the movie, Ava?
Oh, I really liked it as well. I think I think I had seen it, but very many years ago. I didn't it didn't click in till I think about halfway through. But
Same here.
I find yeah. I want to talk about Annette Bening. I'm glad you brought her up in awards. Annette Bening is one of those actresses that I am mesmerized by.
Yeah.
Like just mesmerized by. I was thinking about that. Toni Collette is probably my number one. You know, Meryl Streep mesmerizes me. There's a few others, but Annette Bening, when I saw her, you know, come on camera, I'm like, oh yeah, wow. I just get mesmerized by her. But yeah, no, I really liked the movie. I thought it was a great exploration of different, different dynamics. Like you don't have to be a heterosexual couple to have a dominating, controlling person, and the gender roles. And I think it was an interesting flip. Usually, in fact, when we get to the next movie, I'll comment on that. But this one, Mark wants a family, right?
Mhm.
And in a lot of movies, they're trying to get out of the family or trying to, survive within it and have half a foot out. But so I thought that was a very interesting aspect. I thought the sex scenes between Julianne Moore and Mark Ruffalo were hysterical.
They were hysterical. I have never seen so
hysterical.
much hair pulling and slapping around. And I was like,
And her reaction
I
at
laughed so
first.
hard.
Yeah, her reaction at first. And go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with you on Annette Bening. When she is on screen, you cannot take your eyes off of her. Because she
gets lost in her roles. Yeah, she
disappears
really into her roles. Yeah,
this is a different role than we've kind of seen. I've seen her. I mean, she just goes into her roles completely. She was great.
Julianne Moore is the other one for me like that.
And
when she is on screen, you cannot take your eyes off of her.
Yeah.
Well, they're two of them together, and their dynamic in this movie. That combination was just a joy. I mean, the scenes that they're in together are the best scenes in the movie to me. Don't get me wrong. I love Mark Ruffalo, and I think he's one of the most talented actors out there right now. Yeah. But those two together, every scene they're in together, you can't, you just can't take your eyes off the screen.
I like, to me, the standout sort of things were the group scenes. That's the ones, the whole family. Like I loved it when it was them with the kids and and just them being parents and that sort of thing. I want to just say, just right off the bat before we jump too far into this, I really love this movie. I thought this was a really fun movie. I think it was more comedic than I sort of anticipate. I didn't really watch the trailer for it. It was I would say it leans pretty heavily into the comedy at times. It's still a drama of sorts, but I would say it's a dramedy. Maybe you would be the right way of saying that. I love Julianne Moore. She's at the top of my list of just actors just in general. I love Julianne Moore so much, and she's great in this. I mean, and this is also they're all playing sort of different characters than we see them play
that they normally play.
Mm-hmm. And so
the other part to me when you were talking about the family scenes, I agree, and I think one of the things we dismissed Josh Hutcherson so much, and we shouldn't. He is so underrated.
Yeah,
because he's in these scenes with Maya, the girl I can't even say her last name. That she was
Alice in the Alice in Wonderland. That's what I know her from.
I know she's the same way. She kind of absorbs the screen when she's on it. And Julianne Moore and Annette Bening, and he carried his own. He really did. I mean,
he's always been someone that I've sort of said that he deserved to be a leading man in different movies and different just a actor that's sort of around. He can do a bunch of different things, and he can play sort of a different range of emotions. And he's been someone that I'm like, I don't understand why he hasn't sort of been handpicked, because he was someone who was a young actor in a lot of these different things, and he was sort of the one that I looked at and was like, he's doing really interesting choices, and I've never really thought that he kind of got the roles that he deserved in Hollywood. I'll tell you the one that I think
credit for the roles that he did get, like in the Hunger Games.
Yes,
he was stellar in those too. But
I'm going to say this isn't going to mean anything to anybody, but if we're doing, he's my dream casting of Booster Gold. Of his DC Comics. Someday they're going to make a Booster Gold movie, and you guys are all going to be like, oh, and he's going to become someone that everyone knows and loves. But that is a perfect casting, and he's perfect for that. And just want to put that out in the world.
Out in the world. So
just put a pin in that for whenever that eventually becomes a movie, because he's the perfect casting for that.
Just do it before he's 50.
Yes, exactly. Like we're kind of losing some time here, and it's kind of sad that we're losing that. But yeah.
Can we talk a moment about the theme of sperm donation, for lack of a better? I only bring it up because I've seen a number of movies lately and documentaries on it, and it is a fascinating topic. When it first started happening, I was kind of like, well, okay, it's just kind of a weird form of adoption. but it's so much deeper than that. And this movie I liked. It was definitely on the lighter side of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things went pretty well. I know there was drama, right? But there was comedy, and without spoiling anything, it's life affirming. There's character growth. There's, the documentary I recently saw, though, Diane, I think you saw it too, was the very darkest side of that, right? It was a man who women thought that they were going in and picking out sperm donors, and he, the doctor, was actually going and doing his thing and then injecting his sperm into all these women. And he has something, I think, like, was it 60 plus or was it 90? I can't remember. Children
I
now. I
just know that in that area, if they were to date someone, they have to get a DNA test.
Yes, they have to have a DNA test. And the woman who exposed one of his daughters, who exposed that, said she's just horrified. Of course, she's trying to get him. I can't remember where they are in the investigation or punishing him or whatever. But she said she's just, every time they find another sibling, she's just so distraught because she knows she's going to destroy this person's life, because this guy was actually in an Aryan cult. That was his thing, their thing is to spread their seed, and create this race. So like, oh my gosh, but so going back to this movie again is
not
much
bad.
lighter. And none of that, but much lighter about that, but it's still a very interesting topic. I know kids who were born through that method, and they couldn't be more different than each other. I don't know how that even happened, but they feel no connection to their father. In fact, the family wound up getting divorced. But it's really also another fascinating topic, which has so many different aspects on such a large spectrum, right, of range of emotions and et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Well, in in the case of the doctor, that was a fertility clinic where 99% of those people thought it was their husband's sperm, not his.
Mm-hmm.
So that was even worse.
So the moral of that story was, if you're going to have that procedure, make sure it's a female doctor.
That's right. Well, and that guy's partner didn't even know he was doing it. But anyway, back to the movie. The only thing was,
please.
And Cade, you'll love this part.
But I did find it interesting, just to put a pin in the sort of fertility, the sperm donation. It was interesting. Like they chose to have the same sperm, essentially, which was kind of interesting, siblings. So that they would be biological siblings. And so that was kind of and that's way before this movie ever takes place, but that's kind of an interesting sort of thought, that they wanted them to be half siblings.
Yeah. And then I thought it was interesting that the son was asking Mark, or, whatever the character's name was, why he did it. And Mark's character had the presence of mind to say he wanted to help people rather than I did it for the money. Yeah. Which is probably much more likely.
That he did it for the money.
Yeah.
And then he
I can see why they use the same sperm donor, because what if one of those kids ever needs a kidney?
There you go.
You never know.
Yeah, no, that was a fascinating thing. And then how he was saying that he was trying to say he was doing it for something larger, and that it was for that. But and in the fact that it did hint at the fact that he did sort of lie on the application process a bit, or kind of fudged or built up the sort of truth of that, which was kind of a fascinating thing as to sort of why that was the case,
they picked him based on his application. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, that wasn't quite too true.
Yes.
Anyway. It's like faking your resume. Yes. Only with much bigger ramifications.
Yeah.
That is true.
And I don't know. I guess he was just trying to sell his sperm. I don't know. Trying to make it seem like it was a better deal.
Well, he even pointed out in today, with inflation, it would be worth $90. So, the fact that he knew he pointed all that out, lets you know he really did it for the money. I mean, I think.
If we want to dissect that character a bit, I think he wanted to be a father. Like he did like the idea that somewhere out there
after
that there was
he met them.
Yes. Well, no, but after they were grown.
Really after he met these two kids, that were created as a result of a sperm, then he kind of liked the idea of it.
Yeah.
Because here they are. I mean, they're great kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they're not all screwed up in any way, shape, or form. These are two kids that you would be proud to have as yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
He didn't do
if
anything.
you're a middle-aged guy,
Yeah.
he didn't make any of that happen. But,
Yeah.
I mean, after he was around these two kids a little bit, he was like, you know what? I kind of like this whole family thing.
Yes.
And of course, Julianne Moore was the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
to create his own family. That's what he was falling for her, as he said. But he was falling for the family, not
Family.
just
Yeah,
her.
I agree.
Yeah.
It was interesting too. I just want to point this out because I thought this was an incredible little tidbit about this. Mark Ruffalo filmed his part in 6 days.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it's not a, yeah. Well, I mean, that's still pretty impressive then. Because you would have to essentially.
He's in a lot of the movie for that.
Yeah, he is.
But he's in a lot of scenes.
I mean, there would have to be one day that was him and Julianne Moore. And then one day that was like with it would have to be based on location,
Yeah.
And was he a huge star at that point? I mean, it was kind of right before he was in movies. It wasn't like he was, but he was known. Because like that would almost suggest that he was busy, that he was like in between. He's like, I can do it, but only in this 6 day time. And that, and it's between sort of, that's the sort of thing that you do to get a big star in there. And to sell your movie a little bit, and they're too busy elsewise, and so they make it compact like that. And
I have to say, this movie I thought was perfectly cast. The second one was well cast, but this one was just so perfectly cast. I mean, Mark Ruffalo is like the ultimate go with the flow guy,
Yes.
easygoing, take things as they come kind of guy,
Yes.
which was that character.
Yes.
And I have to think the intention of that character.
And people pointed out, because I didn't watch the trailer beforehand, and then I later watched, I'm like, how did they market this film? And they marketed it very broadly comedic. This is a broad comedy. And I was like, oh, well, that's a little deceptive too, to sort of say it's like, oh, here's these, like, because they kind of picked all the real comedy moments, and then they kind of like did their little comedy music and stopped for the punchline, and then cut, like how like they cut comedy things. And it was really made out to be a real broad comedy, which it is not.
Yeah. Not by today's standards.
Not by
that's
today's
for sure.
yeah. And he and in it, like, there I saw the comments, and they were like, oh, Julianne Moore's playing another like wife who is unfaithful, or whatever, however you want to phrase that, and I'm like,
that wasn't the point of the movie.
That wasn't the point of the movie, for one thing, and also you have to understand. But okay, if you're just boiling it down to like a plot point or something, and it's like that, but that she's not playing the same character that she's playing. I haven't really seen her play that. Like, she's playing a character who the jokes on her oftentimes are like, she's kind of like, and like, that's sort of interesting, like, and that's an interesting sort of thing to play. She's, and also,
what word comes up for me for her character is milquetoast. But I have to say that kind of female character just gets my dander up. There's an old phrase. I'm really dating myself, but gets my hackles up just, for obvious reasons. Like, I want to see strong women, right? Mm-hmm. So when I see women character, there's many, many, many of them, going back, the history of women and so on and so forth. But it's just like, come on, get some moxie. Come on.
And in the end, she did.
Yeah, she did. Her speech at the end about marriage, I thought, was perfect. I don't know who wrote it, but it was short, to the point, exactly, summed it up type thing. But yeah, she did. And I'm sure that was part of the point of the movie. But I think it speaks to how well she played that role, that she did make me mad. It's like, come on.
Yeah, no, I thought, knowing sort of, I think they both played those characters, how they were supposed to be played, and like with her and and Annette Bening, that if you had like this was your first time seeing these actors, that you would just sort of assume that those are what these actors can do, like they have a very limited range, and that's sort of what these characters. But then you see them in other things, and they're nothing like these two roles, and they don't ever really play. And so like I think that really shows to their strength of they just very naturalistically playing how these people would be. And I think Julianne Moore typically is cast in these roles where she has to do this. She is the speech person. She is the I've lost it, and she's the or whatever, and she can do those to perfection and everything. I think that this was very different. It was a very sort of different role for her. I had a point there, but I lost it somewhere along the way.
I will say this: she is one of the whitest people I've ever seen.
Well, she has those freckles too.
I know. It's the redheadedness. It's the redheadedness too. So I'm assuming she's a real redhead, but
yeah,
she is. But she's even whiter than Jessica Chastain.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, she has.
I don't know. Jessica
Yeah.
Chastain is pretty white.
Yeah, this girl. Let me tell you, her legs. I felt so sorry for her every time. Every time they, you knew in filming she had to be getting sunburnt with having to wear shorts. Because that girl was white.
I think Julianne Moore has some freckles, though. I don't know about Jessica.
That's
Chastain.
what I was going to say. Julianne Moore has a lot of freckles, but Jessica Chastain, I don't think does. Also, like Jessica Chastain.
Can I talk about one line?
Okay. Yes, definitely.
Go ahead. One line, real quick, and I can't even say the line because it's not appropriate. I don't. Who comes after us? The censors. But it has to do with something. This is Annette Bening's line about she doesn't need something.
Oh yes, yes.
Okay.
I need you like I need. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I thought in my head to finish that she should have said because I already have something back there. Because she's such she's so uptight. So I really wanted to finish that line for her, but
yes.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted Diane.
No, that's fine. The only thing I really reacted to was when they brought out the pie. And it actually, I think I just have PTSD.
I don't even remember the pie.
I don't remember the pie either from this movie, but I remember the pie from the first 2 movies ago that we watched.
Mark Ruffalo's character made the strawberry rhubarb pie. And she takes a bite of it, and I was like, "Oh no! Don't go for the pie! Go!"
The scene's going to last for 7 minutes if you do.
7 minutes of pie. I can't do it. Just can't. That was a movie that we watched a few weeks ago.
A ghost story.
One of those that,
had a 7-minute pie eating.
Talking about it. Yeah.
That was one of those that did take me until Wednesday to get over.
Yes.
Well, Cade didn't have PTSD because he didn't remember. It didn't bring it up for him.
I didn't bring
movie,
it up. No, I didn't. I did have a few notes for this. So I had the phrase Zoomer. Julianne Moore invented the word Zoomer, so we can thank that. It's just crazy how much 10 years can make of like a phrase that didn't exist, and they're making a joke about it not existing, and now it's part of our lexicon.
Now it's part of our lexicon. Yes.
I loved one of my favorite scenes of the movie is whenever they're confronting their son about what Julianne Moore walked into.
Oh my God.
That whole about they're coming there as they're the people in power of me, we're trying to be supported, and then the tables completely turn, and then that is one of my because Annette Bening, because she's someone who likes her power and her authority and everything, and she's coming from it of hey, whatever's fine, and then he completely flips it on her, and then she's like, hey, wait a second.
We're so open. That's the hippie hypocritical stuff, right? It's oh yeah, anything's cool. It's no.
Okay, my last note that I have on this movie was when they were having dinner at Paul's house, and she discovers Julianne Moore's, hair in the sink and yada yada, and she comes back to the table. Yeah. And she doesn't say anything, but just her face It reminded me of Tom Hanks in the Captain Phillips movie when, where it was just, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and she doesn't say a word, but you just saw her entire life crumble.
Yeah. Well, and it's also the sound design of that, like.
Yes. I had the same note. I had the exact same note, that the distraction,
right there,
not being able to focus.
Yes.
Because everything's crumbling around, so like your ears stop up and you just can't deal.
So it's just like people are talking and everything, and you can just the difference of like, and that's
focus.
whoever the editor and the sound design that nailed that sort of the feeling of that of where like it's kind of white noise. I don't even know exactly, but it's exactly how it was muffled. Was sort of and people are talking around you, but you really can't. You're not paying attention because you're in your own sort of head and your own thoughts, and that was really good.
Can I bring up the dog trope real quick?
Sure.
Okay.
So if you're going to do the dog trope, this is, I guess, the theme when I'm on. If you're going to bring up the dog trope, this is how you do it. You bring up a threat to a dog, and then you have a character step in and say, no. It's not all right.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
That's
it was
that was
pretty
my
close.
last note was to talk about Clay. and, because none of the adults liked him. We didn't even Sperm Dad, who is so cool.
Speaking of redheads, Julianne Moore, and you guys, I want you to notice this sometime. Redheads, of course, I always notice it because I used to be a real redhead. They're very often the other woman when they're female, and when they're men, they're often the villain. Think Christmas Story and the bully who beat people up. They're quite often that. And sure enough, this kid, right, bright red hair, bully. Just notice it sometime. Julianne Moore actually breaks the mold. That's what I like about her. Well, sometimes, like I'm thinking of what is it, Crazy Stupid Love? Is that what it is?
Yes.
She's the one who cheats. But notice that sometime. Take a look at the redheads. It's very, very interesting. That kind of stereotype. Yeah, Clay is a real, but Mark's character nails him right away, right? And says,
right.
Yeah, he's, yeah.
I don't like the way he talks to you. And, so.
Now, I did find one of the things is like the friends of these people sort of like, namely the daughter's friends sort of go away. They kind of I didn't feel like they served enough of a narrative sort of purpose to the story outside of just having someone she could talk to and sort of in different things. And it was bizarre. Her character is supposed to be the focal point. I can't help thinking that some stuff were cut from the streamline the film or something, because she's supposed to be your focal point character by the end of the movie, and she is also kind of the instigator of this sort of beginning part, and I didn't ever feel like she was sort of your focal character through the middle.
I didn't know she was supposed to be the focal character.
Well, by the end,
by the end, yes, but I didn't. I thought the boy was supposed to be more so. And
yes.
What did you guys think? It was interesting because he kind of formed, I think, the least attachment to Mark's character. And he was the one at the beginning who wanted the most attachment, right?
That's
or the
great,
most.
Yeah.
He was the one that wanted to meet
Really
him.
interesting.
That was interesting. And that was a really good kind of like, swap. And I did like that was one of the things, when I was watching it, that I was like, oh, that's really cool. And you immediately see that with that first interaction of how she's sort of enamored with this, and she didn't really want this going into it. She was against meeting Mark Ruffalo, just for our audience who's listening, so they know. She was against, but she was doing. So she turned 18, just so people knows the plot. She turned 18 so she could contact this sperm donor. But really, the son was the one who wanted to contact the father, but he couldn't because he was 16 at the time, I believe, so his age.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And so she was doing that, and she's leaving. She's leaving for college, and so that's sort of why that. There's also that ticking time clock of this during this movie. But yes, the sort of swap in that very first meeting of like, you could see that this wasn't everything that he wanted from him. He wasn't the sort of idealized version that he had set in.
Right.
But he was serving something that she didn't quite even realize that she was missing. And initially. Of course, then things changed and everything. But I thought that was really cool. I also liked how it was very obvious that they prefer the one that was their child was more like them. That was sort of an intentional thing. The one's named Tony and the other one's name's Laser. I thought was just perfect.
Joni, after Joni
sorry,
Mitchell.
yes.
Joni Mitchell.
Yes,
I was
Joni.
actually distracted by the name Laser. It actually bothered me. I'm like, what? And I didn't get it. I was also distracted by the daughter's hair. It's like, I think they were using it almost as a prop, right?
Yeah.
Long hair in front of the face to hide behind, but I'm like, somebody cut her hair. It's like, okay, you're making it too obvious. Pull her hair back. That was the other little thing that bothered me. Little pet peeve.
I thought, but like Julianne Moore's character is so specific of a thing, of like a type of her. Like I think it made sense for her. She's kind of flighty. She's kind of has these different projects that she goes around, and she's just very she doesn't like, she lets Annette Bening's character sort of make the decisions and sort of tell her what to do and everything, and so she like gravitates to these sort of interesting, but I don't know. I found that like she would name her character or her son Laser. It's just because she's kind of that. Like, I don't know how else to sort of talk about her.
Is there a rock star that was named Laser? I was trying to figure that out. I was going to Google it and say, is there a 60s rock star named Laser? I don't know.
I think that they just turned their relationship into a typical heterosexual relationship. You know, where you have one partner who's dominant and controlling and all that, and the other partner who compromises and placates and gets along, and it's literally hard.
There's something to the fact that I think she kind of also, like, she wasn't a decision maker. Like, she kind of wanted people to sort of make decisions for her. That's sort of like
codependent is the psycho word for it.
And go ahead.
Which a lot of couples are like that, and it doesn't really matter if they're gay or they're heterosexual or what. It's very common in couples to have one that's more driven by the heart and the other driven by the head.
Did you think that
most of the time that works?
Did you think they dealt with the alcoholism thing good enough to have it? It would be like, it was well into the movie that's like, oh, we've set it, because like they had set it up once. Oh, that's your fourth drink, and she's like, it's my third, but thanks for pointing it out. And that's kind of into the movie. And then the second time where it becomes a pattern is well into the movie of like, this is pretty far in the movie to kind of, like this is a repeated thing, and then for it to just be like, I guess, handled off screen. I don't know.
Well, no, I think that's typical in what you see on, in screens of even with heterosexual couples. Yeah. See it all the time. That's almost a trope. And
that's true.
The wife is saying, "Oh, you've had too much to drink," and the wife is saying, "Well, you miscounted," or whatever. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, but for it to be kind of just lines that are like, but it's just kind of, and then it's solved. It's just like plot point, like, I don't know, G or something of the movie, and it's just like,
no, I think it was just another one of those points that they were making that they are just like any other couple.
Okay, yeah, that is sort of a trope of that. Yeah, I mean, hers is of course wine, but
well, and that kind of character too, who's so controlling. It's like, feelings are coming up. I got to push them back down with alcohol. That's how I took it. It's like any little feeling of out of control, I've got to numb myself.
Well, cool. Yeah, I also did have. I had a note of that. Who would have thought, like, after all this time, that who were the two people that during this time Marvel movies, of course, took off and everything, and who would have thought that Mark Ruffalo ends up being the two actors that are in this movie that are that come into Marvel movies and superhero things are Mark Ruffalo and Annette Bening. Wouldn't have been my choices for that.
Yeah. I was looking in.
Nothing against them. It's just kind of, I wouldn't have thought that they would have been the actors to choose that.
Yeah. the Avengers came out in 2012, so it's very possible that he was just a little bit overbooked when they were filming this movie in 2010.
Yes, and then Annette Bening later does Captain Marvel or whatever, and but like I want, where's my Julianne Moore superhero movie? She can be a villain. I don't care.
Didn't she commit to one of those teenage series that didn't do so well?
Yeah, she did, and she would, and like that's the thing, like, and she did Kings. She was the villain in Kingsman too, and like so she'll do these movies, and yes, she did Seventh Son or something like that with Jeff Bridges, and
which is too bad because I think that was cast really well, but terrible adaptation.
And then she was
for a Hunger Games. It didn't work. And
she's also in Hunger Games. She was President Coin in Hunger Games, which is great casting, but also a weird character in general of just like set up and then dispatched really too soon. Like the whole. That's a great character and the point that they're making, but whatever. That's not important to this conversation. But she's the point of the president. I'm going to quickly talk about this. The point of President Coin is like it's supposed to sort of set up the sort of what's the Who song? Meet your new boss, same as the old boss. Is this the idea that like this revolution starts and the person that you bring into power is essentially just a kind of the same version that you had just dismissed of, and and that's the point of that character. And she's this revolution. And she's supposed to be progressive and everything, but then she turns out to be just as bad of a villain as you had just got rid of. But when you're making that point, you can't just then you're like, well, then we're not ending the story, so then they have to get rid of her too. And it's just like, no, make the story that revolutions are pointless because you're going to always fall. Every revolution's going to install people that are the same bad that you had just got rid of. That is the nature of the revolutions in history. But they couldn't do that. They wanted, it was a popcorn thing.
Not always.
It's a repeated thing. I would say most revolutions are that way. Most.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
that's not the point of the thing.
Not the point of this movie. So are we going to talk about what our ratings are going to be?
Sure. Let's talk about what our ratings are. Go ahead, Diane. What are you going to give this?
I'm going to give this I was going to give it 4 glasses of wine, but it doesn't matter.
It's wine.
Wine.
Yeah.
Wine.
Why don't you give it
a lot of wine in this movie?
Yes.
You could put like 12 glasses of wine.
Well, I like the fact
4 because she did drink 4.
Did you count them?
Julianne was right.
Oh, Julianne was right. Okay. I did not count it.
She did drink 4. I went back and looked.
Ava, what are you going to give this movie?
Well, first, can I suggest a subtitle for this movie? What's it called? It's called The Kids Are All Right. The Adults Are Screwed Up. I want a subtitle.
Yeah, there you go.
The adults are all left.
Not so much.
They're all left.
The kids are all right, but the adults are not so much.
Well,
I messed up.
Also, all right is 2 words is also kind of a. I don't exactly know what the point of that was because all right is spelled. It's 1 word with 1 L, right? Isn't that I don't know if there's a different spelling of that.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
that's true.
And I'm like, is there some point to that? Yeah, I don't. Some dropped thing because I was like thinking like when we set up the Zoomer thing that there was going to be some sort of play on like them coming up with words that because of the title of the thing, but then that never came into fruition. So I was like, I don't really know why they did that, but okay. So, yes, Ava, what are you going to rate this?
I'm going to give it 4 plants for Julianne Moore's. So any kind of plant you have in there, flowers or
yes,
bushes
I was going to do that as well, or I was going to have like a potted plant. No, it's fine. No, it's actually I changed mine at the last second. So,
or I was looking at the emojis, and there's like families. So
yes,
if you have that emoji with families, you could give it 4 families.
Yes, there was that, but I gave you a little plant thing. I'm going to give it a motorcycle.
Thank you.
That's what I'm giving it.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean, I don't typically rate them out of whatever. So, but I did. Yeah. I did really like this movie. I did. I thought it was really. It was a fun. I was even like halfway through. It's like, oh, this is the type of movie I like. I like family dramas. I think well-made ones and comedy and everything. And I think because you instantly understand the stakes like it's not, they don't have to do a lot of like legwork of like this is important because they're a family. It's because of the, you know, and so you don't have to, people understand it immediately, and so you don't have to like explain why the things that are happening are so important for you to be invested in. Like you understand it instantly, and then you understand dynamics. There's shorthands that you can do there, and there's just, it's ripe for comedy, and I think it's just one of those genres that I really like. And there's a lot of fun that can be had there, but it's also a lot of rich with drama as well. So I do like that stuff a lot. I did have one question. Did you like how Mark Ruffalo's character ended? Do you think that was like the appropriate way, or that it was too abrupt, or because I kind of thought it was a little abrupt, but you know.
Well, how else would that
remind me?
So he, you know, like,
how else would they, I mean, think about this for a minute. From the kid's perspective, right? This guy is an interloper. I mean, to their family.
Yeah.
But do you think that was too strong of a word to that? Like they were very harsh to
their kids. I mean, think about it. This is a villain to them now. I mean, you know, he almost destroyed their family to them. You got to look at it from the perspective of the children, not from his perspective. This movie isn't about him. It's about the kids.
Yeah, it would have been very, very disruptive. Yeah, very disruptive to their family. I think I kind of feel like in the future, they might reach out. They would each have their own relationship, though, with him. Maybe. Like it wouldn't be possible. The whole family. Mm-hmm. The whole family wouldn't include him in, you know, family vacations or anything because of what happened. But the kids would eventually have some sort of adult relationship with him individually.
I mean, that's just it. Why? I mean, the reality was.
Because but he really got them, right? That was his thing. Is like,
or did he?
He really understood them. Yeah, just like he understood the friend.
Would he have? Just say it. If he really understood them, right, and really respected them as his children, right?
Well, understood
would he
and
have
respect,
done what he
two
did?
different things.
Right.
Two different things, though. Understood and respect is two different things.
Ava, I know for a fact if somebody disrespected you on the level he disrespected them, they would be dead to you the rest of their lives.
I don't know in that situation. I mean,
he's their father.
He has never been their father.
But not
by his choice. Not by his choice, though. But it remains that he's their biological father. They would still be curious, I think, if they got older.
But so did Julianne Moore. Like in this situation, I don't see how he is as any more to blame than like they're not gonna cut her out of their life because that's their mother, and so where
they've known her for 18, 16 years. They have known him for a couple of months.
I get what you're saying,
and you're right, Ava. Yeah. I'm sure when he's on his deathbed, they're gonna like run to him and say, "Oh, Daddy, we miss you," whatever.
Yes.
But at this point in their lives, no, I don't think so. He almost destroyed their
family. I agree. Not at this point, not at all. But I just think maybe in the future, because if we transition into the infidelity thing that Cade brought up at the beginning of the two movies, I went through that. I have I know of 3 generations of infidelity in my family, including my own father, and it's interesting. But
so are you best friends?
They didn't know him.
Are you best friends with the woman your dad was with?
I never met the woman.
Well,
I only knew of her. But
it'd be a different story if they were biological or something. Like,
I'm sorry. He was never their father.
I understand. Like, I do think.
No, I get that. I agree. But I just think some way in the future, not right now. In the future, one of them, maybe not even both of them, but one of them would have some sort of relationship with him. Maybe not a real close one. Yeah. Maybe, and like I said, he would never be invited to family functions for sure. But there'd be some connection, I just think.
Yeah,
and it was probably how the filmmakers wanted to leave it.
But they made it definitive of an end. I felt like that they kind of made it like everyone hates him and everyone, it's done and it's clear cut, and then Mark Ruffalo's out of their lives is sort of, and that's where I was like, and I understand it's a movie, it's wrapping up, and you have to kind of do that. You can't just be like, but I do think they could have left it slightly more open ended. That like it's like, okay, we've crossed the line, we're good for now. Yeah. Where there's something happened. We'll be best friends later.
Okay. We could have had our lives, but we're going to love you because
we're not talking best friends. We're not talking best friends, Diane. We're not talking best friends. We've had a scene, to your point, Cade, I think they could have had a scene where he's sitting pondering what he did.
Yes.
Right? He's self-reflecting and like, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I am missing out on a family. I mean, he said that to his girlfriend, he picked up her, right? Something about, yeah, I realize I want a family or something, but they could have had a scene just where he's thinking, you know, he's like self-reflecting.
That was his entire arc. Yeah. Was his character's entire arc. Oh, wow, I have 2 children. Oh, shit. Oh, I guess I'll go meet him. Oh, these are pretty cool kids. Hey, I like kind of hanging around. I get to be the cool dude.
I like a family. Yeah.
I think I can do this. I think I will do this. Let me go bang their mama. I'm sure I'll just steal her and take the kids with me, and I'll have my family. And then, this doesn't work out. Darn.
And it's my fault. And it's part of my fault. It's part of my fault.
You should be doing what I want you to do. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't think he was that vengeful or evil of a character.
Yeah, we need to calm Diane down.
No. All I'm saying is that
Diane, drink those glasses.
Isn't that funny? I thought the movie was from the perspective of the children. I didn't realize it was from an adult perspective.
Well, I think it
really was a soap opera and not from these kids' perspective.
I think
it was from all perspectives.
I agree.
You have to always look at that.
Yeah.
I think it was from all. They kind of it was an ensemble cast. Like it shifted perspectives throughout the time of different things. And I do think that at a certain point when it shifted to like Annette Bening and sort of whenever she realizes everything that's happening in that whole scene, it no longer. Mark Ruffalo's character it was no longer from his perspective, and they sort of kind of make that hard shift. And it's kind of bizarre in the sense of like I kind of grew and I understood that character just like I understood the rest of the character. Like they did a good job of explaining each of these characters' perspectives, and I completely understood them as real people and as people that I've understood completely where they were coming from. Each of them, even the ones who made bad decisions or whatever that will have an impact, and for them to sort of flippantly sort of get rid of him, I thought, and not really kind of, even from the movie's perspective, they didn't really show him all that much. They kind of needed to vilify him in some sort of way. And I'm like, I just felt like they could have handled that with a little bit more nuance and a little bit more open-endedness that would have been that. At the end of the day, I love the movie and I understood it all, but that was just kind of one of the, wish there was a little bit more there.
Yeah, but he should have showed up at the college.
No, I don't think that.
You're so right.
No, I don't think that.
Diane, I agree with you that was his arc. I agree with you for the function of the movie that was his arc, and that the whole point was then that, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but then the family has to heal. That's what it was about the nuclear family.
Yes.
So I see both your points. To Cade's point,
I know that
he understood it all.
I don't think he should have moved in. I don't think he should have been like, everything's fine what he did and everything. I don't think that. I think there's a middle ground.
Everybody ever cheated on me. I never asked the person that he cheated with to go have dinner. Never did it. No, never created a relationship with them or anything like that. And I'm pretty sure I don't know a single person that ever has.
But from an entitled...
You're right. He absolutely came in a cup.
From an entitled male perspective, and I agree, Juliet.
So.
I'm just trying to get in the character's head. I'm not approving, believe me, of it at all. But Julianne, to Kate's point, Julianne Moore was just as guilty, if not more. she was in the family, and he wasn't.
He didn't have any responsibility to these kids, or that's the sort of thing. It wasn't his, and that's the point of the film, is that like he felt like he was, he was still acting like this sort of bachelor person that didn't understand the responsibilities of having these kids, and he was acting from that sort of perspective. He was not a good father. But Julianne Moore should have definitely knew. Like he purposefully. That's sort of the point of this movie, is these gray areas that this sort of thing, that this weird relationship that they have creates, is that he's sort of half a father figure, but also half just sort of this guy. And so and
that he, as he sees a role because of Annette Bening's. His perspective is she has some big flaws, right? She doesn't appreciate Julianne Moore. I mean, this is what's the word I'm looking for? Excuse.
Yes.
These are the excuses I'm sure that would come up in that character's mind, is, she needs saving. Annette Bening's character shouldn't be so restrictive of these kids, my kids biologically, and, blah, blah, blah. But
yes.
Yeah.
Because in some ways he's the father to both of them, and like, whereas the only one, I mean, biologically speaking, I mean, of course they were both there and everything, but like that's what they're playing with. There's not the like in like, I mean, that's it's a fascinating film. I think, and and it deals with that sort of stuff interestingly. I just wish it wasn't so definitive of an ending of a chapter close of like, you have to get this movie over.
Right. You're right. I'm sure that she will want him to walk her down the aisle and not Annette Bening. Because that's a real
I think he's invited to the wedding, right? He has to, right?
No. He was not in their life for 18 years. Why should he suddenly have this role in their life? I'm sorry. I disagree.
You're thinking of it from your perspective, is what it sounds like.
I never became best friends with the girl that cheated with my husband. Never did it. Yeah. Didn't even want to meet her.
We're not talking best friends. Yeah, right. But we're not talking best friends. We're talking about the child. I wanted to meet my fathers, but that's a much different situation. But I wanted to meet my fathers. I really did.
And I'm sure
I wanted to meet her. My mom doesn't know to this day. Well, supposedly, she suspects.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And I understand.
We won't go down that road.
This is a dynamic that will never all live, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a very specific dynamic that this movie deal with. Yeah, and I like that. I like getting put in a sort of complicated situation, and I felt like the movie dealt with the sort of complicated, sort of nuanced part of this movie, and for it to have such a clear cut thing, that was my complaint. I understand that there's feelings there.
Can we move on from your complaint?
Yeah, we can, Diane. I was just wanting. I met you halfway. I was wanting you to meet me halfway. There were some points that I was making. She's not moving.
I'm like, okay, if you think that they should be
okay, Diane.
The Queen has spoken. The Queen has spoken.
Great.
Maybe they could do a sequel.
Great. Well, so that's been The Kids Are All Right.
Go watch it.
Go watch it. I think we all, despite our different things, we do agree it's a good movie. It's a really good movie.
It's a really good movie. Yeah.
It's a really good movie, and I think it elicits these sort of things, because I think these characters are interesting characters, and they are well drawn characters and everything. Great. Our next movie, we're going to go into our intermission. Our next movie is Wildlife, and Ava will give a plot description of that movie after a short intermission. Be sure to grab something from the concession stand.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice-cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
There you go.
Hi, everyone. All right, our second movie. Yes, we do have another one, believe it or not. So Wildlife came out in 2018, and it's about a family that moves around quite a bit. Mainly it's kind of inferred because the father has a hard time keeping a job. And now they are in Montana. It's set in 1960, and the father basically abandons the family. 60. The family basically abandons the family. He goes and takes a job fighting wildfires. And so the movie really explores the mother and son's reaction to the father leaving. It's very intensely emotional and is essentially a character study into how, us humans might react in that situation. And that's it for my summary.
Perfect. No, yeah.
50, as in 50.
No, it was 60. It was 60. JFK was talking in the background on the radio. It was 60. I know because I was born a year before, so I noted that in my head.
Yeah, because the radio broadcast of the baseball game was from 1950.
Well, then they got that really wrong because later on
they did.
Because later on they were talking. It was JFK. But anyway.
Yeah.
So.
When does Wildlife take place? I'm Googling that.
Yeah, I know. Because it kind of threw me when I thought, well, that kind of makes sense because in 1950 you would have listened to a baseball game on the radio.
Yeah, it says 1960.
Remember their TV was on
Circa.
1960.
Great. Well, yeah, because it's kind of about the dissolution of the 50s family, so it kind of makes sense to...
Well, I thought that this is one of the things that I kind of loved about this movie. We have, as a society, I guess, we've created this illusion that the 1950s were perfect. Mm-hmm. We had the nuclear family. Yeah. Everybody was happy. Everybody had jobs. Everybody had
World
cars.
War II was over.
It was a great time. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't at all. My dad worked days. My mom worked nights. I mean, they barely saw each other. They barely scraped by. I have a canceled check from their mortgage payment. It was $54 a month. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be wonderful? Except for they made $2 an hour. I mean, it was like how that it just kind of puts in front of on the screen what it truly was like instead of this fantasy that everybody has about how great America was back then.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Not for white folks, not for black folks, not for anybody, unless you were wealthy.
And they talk about that. That's kind of what the movie, and they really focus in on wages too. They really say there's wages, like even when they go to the grocery store and outside it has those signs. I mean, like the money aspect of how much things cost and what you're getting paid is front and center in this movie.
Right. And
I would say the same thing.
Even
that
has
the theme is
great line about how money begets money.
Oh,
and
yes.
If you're poor, you just will never gonna get it, and that was really true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the theme of the haves and have-nots was, I thought, very prominent. Yeah.
Yes.
Very prominent. Go ahead.
And it was true then as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many times I think, and I see this all the time on everywhere about Make America Great Again. Well, everybody wants to harken back to that time, and it was not that great.
Yeah. Well, I think I brought this up before. I have a master's in history, and after I studied, it's like there really is no history. It's you can't go back. You don't know what happened. You look at an incident, a crime. If 3 people saw it close up, they all have a different perspective of what happened, and they're completely different from one another. So there really is no history.
Mm-hmm. So what did you get a degree in?
It's like
it doesn't exist.
I think for me what I learned from it is, first of all, you look at people's perspective of history and try to rewrite it and what their intention is, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And you read only primary sources. That's why I only read nonfiction, and I only and I like documentaries. I like fictional movies, obviously. But what I liked about this movie, though, going back to the movie, is its quietness. I thought it was directed very, very well. I noticed the direction in this movie. I noticed the scenes and how they were set and how he tried to make it quiet.
Yes.
You know, it was such a quieter time. I totally agree with everything Diane said about this image, you know, of people thinking the 50s was great and all that. Totally get it. But I love that the lack of distraction, you know, and noise and all this stuff. And it was just the characters. And I love that about this movie.
Yes,
No
and I
cell
think
phones.
it's important to note, we didn't say that up top, this is directed by Paul Dano,
It was his
actor.
debut, right?
Yeah,
His directorial
I
debut.
believe so. And
I love this guy. He and his wife both.
and then it was written by him and his wife, Zoe Kazan, Kazan, or however, we never really looked up how to
They're
pronounce
actually
it.
not married.
Oh, they're not
actually
married.
Not married. Go
Oh,
ahead.
oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
They're
They're
partners.
they're partners. Sorry,
They're
thank you.
partners and they have a child, but they're not married.
Okay, thanks for correcting that. Actually, is important. But yeah, so
I
they.
don't know if it's important to anyone, but it's
It's
probably important to them. So, yeah.
Maybe.
But yes, that and they wrote this together, which I think helped with the different perspectives of that and everything. And I so this one much more, the other one ensemble, everyone kind of, you get the perspective of these 5 characters. This one I do think shown from the child's perspective almost entirely.
Yeah. It was
See, yes, but I thought it was more about the mother
Yes.
than the son. But
Yes.
It's from the son's perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is that sort of thing. I mean, it's like, you know, whatever. I mean, there's novels like that where like the main character, your sort of perspective character is not your main character, but it's who that sort of thing's told by. I think very similar. The kid doesn't have very many lines. He's someone reacting to the things, but it is from his perspective. Yeah.
It's his reaction that you're looking for.
Yeah.
That's
He
the focus,
he does such this silently worried face.
Oh my
throughout the
gosh,
entire-
he was so good. This child, first off, parents oversharing. I have a question for my 2 only child friends here, because I didn't grow up in an
I want to
environment
talk
of an
about
only
that
child.
with Cade. Yeah.
Because
Well,
Cade, you and Ava both are only children. Do your parents overshare like these parents did with their kids?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do
mine
your
did.
parents' sexual
Yeah. Yes.
intimacy,
It's-
all that.
Well, no, not the
Whoa.
sexual
Sure,
stuff,
yeah.
not so much. Not so much. But that was what I so related to this movie, Diane. I brought it up in that respect. What they overshare is their problems.
Yes.
Like you saw the father try to draw the kid into their argument, and you saw the mother.
That they're both
you know,
using. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying.
Tell your
they're
mother
trying-
and tell your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're so desperate, right? They don't have the tools to parent, or they don't have the tools for life. They don't have the tools to parent, so they look to the child, their only child, to help. And the child sometimes, like I was told by a psychologist, I was parented at a very young age. Like they made me a parent. They looked to me for guidance, and they looked to me for answers sometimes when I was 16, or this kid was 14.
And they
So
really
I'm very
highlighted.
much related to that. Yeah.
They
Go
did
ahead,
they did a point in what you're kind of saying of where she kind of later on that like they're talking about this, she thinks that she maybe had a child too young, that was sort of that is sort of in that, you know, almost that is one of the points that she's there.
Well, she resented, and I feel that for, you know, Diane, I feel that from my mother all the time. She resented having to raise the kid, especially after the father left. He said,
Like-
"Oh, I still have a son to raise," or something. I think I still have a son to raise tomorrow, or something like that.
Yeah.
She wanted out, and she, you know, she was holding on because she knew it was her responsibility to parent this child. Especially
She felt like it was
after the
given
husband.
to her, like
Yeah.
it was the responsibility.
Yeah.
He left the responsibility to her, and and it just didn't ever ask, you know.
Yeah.
Which I thought
that kind of does explain why only children are so overbearing.
Yeah.
You
Because
are
they've been
just
making
fucking
having
Frank's left and
decisions
right
with
tonight.
their before.
Diane's coming for us, Ava. I don't know. I don't. I feel like we're being
Boiling
attacked.
for a fight.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm caught between, Cade and
Only
Jennifer all the time.
children, no, only children develop life skills much earlier.
Oh,
Because
is
of
that
it.
it?
Yes.
I can't ever get Cade and Jennifer to compromise. They're dead set, man. This is my way. And it's like, this is my way. And they're just like,
I was compromising with you. You just weren't noticing it on that last argument.
Not really. Not really.
No, I think so. I think we were.
Well, us middle kids,
there was-
we can sometimes, take a stand.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But the other thing about being an only child like that, very apparent in this movie, is the focus. There's no buffers. There's no buffers. It's three people. And so someone's got to be the tiebreaker, or somebody's got to be. There's like no escaping it. There's no, I got to go to take care of your brother Timmy. There's none of that.
Yes.
It's just the three of you.
I'll tell you what's so bizarre is I didn't even register like he's an only child like until you asked that question of like that's just a normal household and I was like that's just a normal household that like I didn't even think like it was bizarre that he didn't have any siblings. To me, like the other one's more because I'm fascinated by siblings. That's like, oh, these sibling dynamics is so fascinating and interesting. This one I didn't even. I was so focused on like the characters and anything that didn't even strike to me as like this is a bizarre household or anything. It's just this is a normal household with different. I mean, they have the problems that they have is interesting.
This is the last thing that I wrote about this movie
was,
is this what it's like to be an only child?
Yes,
and I didn't.
For me, it was. Yeah.
I think that was eye-opening from that perspective because
it was very much the father dumped on the kid. The mother dumped on the kid. The mother put him in terribly adult situations he should have never, in my opinion, never be put in. He made it through it all. Like, again, I think I'm extremely independent because of being raised like that. But the other thing about it is you don't know how, like, both my parents had psychological problems. The mother tells them she wants to commit suicide. How do you shouldn't be telling your 14-year-old kid you're thinking about suicide. It reminded me of About a Boy, actually, in that respect. And if you can weather through it, and again, I didn't know, the extent of my parents' problems until I was older, right? It's your normal.
Yeah.
So, Cade, are you going to talk about your parents' problems?
No, I mean,
They might listen to this.
No,
Yeah, mine will not. And the others,
Yeah, no, I mean, like they're good. They're still. I mean, I have the ability of my parents still together. They are together for life, I guess, till one of them goes or whatever. But at this point, but yeah, I mean, there's always problems and different things, and you sort of we had a very open talk about things, and and like my opinion sort of mattered than anything else. I mean, it was a lot of, hey, this is going on, and it's just an open sort of conversation. One thing
too much, Cade, though, but I just want to point this one thing out because I've known you for a long time now, and I've known Jennifer for a long time, and known Ava forever. Is that all of you have this kind of old souls about you. And I think it is from being treated like an individual or being treated like an adult.
Yeah.
When you look at the other movie, well, when you look at the other movie and Annette Bening, it's like, did you do the thank you notes? Did you send the get well card? Did you, you don't see that kind of dynamic when it's an only child. You're not talked to the same way.
Well, you're around adults, typically you're not around someone who's like your age. And so you're around these people like that are old. And so you kind of are more comfortable around people that are older than you are around, because it seems kind of bizarre. Like even with him, like he's kind of weird around kids. I mean, given some of that's because he's moved to this new school, but it is, I think, also just because most of the people that he
much more to adults.
Yes. And so I do think that is a part of that dynamic. One thing I had a note for, and because it's an only child thing, and it's just, I mean, maybe I think a lot of people can maybe agree to this, but I do think it's from an only child perspective, the fact that he is like constantly told to grow up. Grow up. You're like doing this, like elevating him to an adult status. Like that's what this movie's
You're
about.
14.
But, but then at the same time.
glass of wine, you're 14.
Yes. So there's all that, but then at the same time, it's like, oh, you never understand you're a kid. So he's in this like middle stage of where, I mean, he's at that point in his life where he's like constantly being like, okay, you're an adult, whatever. We're telling you these things. And they even like said several different things about you're essentially an adult, whatever. And then there's several times where they're like, well, your opinion doesn't matter. You're just a kid or whatever, or couldn't possibly understand this stuff because you're a kid. So it's constantly being built up and taken down. And like, and was one of the little interesting parts of the movie is like where he's like in this in between age, but also I think because he's an only child that he's not really an adult, he's not really a kid, but he's treated in whatever situation as whatever people need it to be,
Yeah, like even that scene where the mother takes him to see the fire, and that I thought was one of the most interesting scenes. And she's like, "How do you like it?"
Yes.
And he's like, I don't. And the mother's point was to say, see, neither one of us can relate to your father.
Yes. That was the whole point.
Intent, putting that kid in that position to like, see, you should feel more for me because we can't understand your father. Like trying to get him on her side. Yes. Which is again a huge emotional burden on a 14-year-old.
Great
or
shot,
any child for that matter.
While we're talking about that shot of the wildfire, I don't exactly know how that's one of those things. Like this wasn't a movie that was obviously made with a huge budget. Didn't look. I don't know how they quite did that. If it was they took a scene of a wildfire, or if that was CGI. If it's a CGI, that's the best CGI fire I've seen for a movie that has a very low budget. Or how they even just framed that. Great visually. Really one of the great scenes. Visually, this movie is great.
It was filmed in, 2017? It was 2018.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they could have taken that shot. I mean,
I would
California has been on fire for a while now.
Yeah, to me, I think, it makes the way that it looked, it made more sense for it to be like superimposed. They couldn't bring the actors out to that, but they could superimpose an actual fire. Yeah. They didn't
actually show either one of the actors in the fire, or
they showed the back of him. They show the back, which can easily be superimposed.
Easily be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think that was an actual fire.
I think so too.
That they used.
I do too.
I think it's interesting too. There's so many themes in this movie that harken back to the 50s were the wonderful time. Mm-hmm. Yay, the 50s. Yeah, we didn't have wildfires, until the 2000s, and it's just because California is a Democratic state, so therefore they have wildfires there. That's not true. This has been going on. I mean, this is some of the things that I love about this movie. Is like, okay, first off, the 50s were not the world's best time, number one. Number two, wildfires have been happening on such a regular basis that they actually have training for children in schools.
Yeah.
So think about that for a second, right?
You don't have to take notes about that.
You don't take notes about it. They're going to make us do this a whole bunch. Yeah. The other thing that I kind of loved about this is in 1960, I was 5 years old. So a lot of this was like watching home movies. The clothes on the line. Listening to a baseball game on the radio. My dad used to do that all the time. The kitchen table they had, which was the gray Formica with the swirls. Ours was pink.
Yeah.
Ours was pink. And then the fire drills, but the bomb drills. And they just mentioned it.
They were terrifying,
They were terrifying. When you were a little kid and had to go through that, I cannot believe that they didn't think. I look at today's environment where they don't have the bomb drills anymore. Instead, they have the active shooter drills.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what they're doing to these children. Because we were so traumatized. We literally thought we were going to die.
Yeah. I wasn't old enough for those, but I was in a college class years ago, and we had to write, I forget what we had to write, something from our past, but a woman about your age, Diane, she literally broke down in tears talking about those drills. And she was shocked that she had that emotional reaction, but it was 4 decades later or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she still viscerally, talking about PTSD, she was still traumatized by it. putting attention on it back then. Yeah, had to be terrifying. I didn't have to go through those because I'm younger in that I hang out with older people like Diane.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, speaking of
we
like
had tornado drills too,
Yeah.
and they still do. Sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
here
had
they have
those.
those, yeah.
The bomb drills are so much scarier because whether you could see, it was like there was nothing. What on earth, it was like
I do
Santa
remember
Claus gone bad.
Yeah, I do remember talking to my parents about it, like saying, well, okay, well, if a bomb drops, how far away does the bomb have to drop that we won't die? I remember having those conversations, and of course, the answer was, "You would die."
Yeah,
yeah, like the kid
really
says in
be
this
right
movie.
under it if possible.
Yeah, this kid says that in the movie, doesn't she? She goes, "Don't take notes about it because it's like the bomb. You'll be dead anyway." Something like that. That was like I figured that out at 7 or 8. With the Cold War, it's like, and of course, my parents didn't have a decent answer to it, right? What do you say? I really like the line. Can I switch a little bit?
I want to talk about slightly about the active shooter thing. That is, you're right. That sort of, that's been throughout my whole life of I don't remember a time in which that wasn't sort of one of the drills. You did the fire drill, you did the tornado drill, what you do, and you do an active shooter. What in case someone came that was there?
Really? I didn't know you like when you were in elementary school.
Yeah, it was in elementary school. Columbine was before I was even. Well before. Before
he was even born.
Well, Columbine, I think I was maybe a year old when Columbine probably happened.
So by the time you got to school, active shooter drills were a real deal.
Yes, and so Columbine was and so in elementary school, dude, and there was a actual scare at one point with there was a bomb scare when I was in elementary school, and we're gonna probably this video at this point won't probably do good on YouTube because we've said too many words, but yes, it's fine. It will be fine. People on our podcast can hear it, but it'll be a little bit. But anyways, there was someone who came unannounced into our elementary because you're supposed to check in, and he had like some sort of box or something, and they were like scared, and there was an active shooter. And so what they would do in that situation is they had like a code, and they would tell you like this was sort of the code for it, and it was like, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like some like there's a meeting or something with like in the library or something it was some phrase or some person. So it was a code that essentially like people, it wouldn't register for this active shooter, whoever this suspect that they had, that they wouldn't think there was anything alarmed by it, but everyone would know when that came up out there was somebody on campus. It was over. Yeah. Yes, and that you needed to seek.
Somebody on campus. Okay.
Yes, that there's somebody there at the school that could possibly be somebody there with a gun. That was yeah. And so you had to barricade the door, and this, I think, I know one time that definitely did happen. It was it was a teacher's husband that was there to deliver flowers for her birthday, and that caused this huge alarm. And and it was a triggering moment of just being like thinking that there's possibly someone on campus that is there to shoot, that was there to do that. And then later we had to evacuate a school because there was a suspicious box on the playground that later turned out to be nothing. But yeah, that is life for a lot of kids. And I'm sure they have to, even now, I'm sure there's even more precautions of like if there's somebody there and there's a bunch of check-ins and things. And I never had to never had where they had metal detectors or anything like that. But I'm sure it's even more of a thing that you can't just be wandering on campuses with boxes. And so there is, a lot of school children have these stories, I'm sure, throughout America.
When I was a senior in high school, I worked in the office, because you got the perk jobs in, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a bomb scare called into the office, and they had to evacuate East Central, which at the time had 1,300 students, 5 stories, stairs only. And you talk about having to empty out a building now, and all of us having to go out into the parking lot.
Yeah.
And, but yeah,
I would imagine East Central could withstand a bomb. because of how.
Didn't know where it was at.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's a very, it's a
possible.
big, it's a fortress.
It was a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
And, yeah. You had all these signs with a nuclear deal on it that says nuclear
People think it's a
bomb
prison.
shelter.
That's sort of the joke around here.
It was built during the days when schools were prisons.
Yeah. It's
And,
like
and
windowless,
everybody-
almost.
no windows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No windows, curved, walls. So
pretty.
tornadoes would bounce off of it,
It's unique.
Yeah. It's unique. It can be terrifyingly depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to all 3 years. Anyway, so getting back to the
Sorry.
movie.
Yes. Please. Yeah.
The other thing that kind of threw me completely out of this movie is when they were in the classroom, Ava, and the girl that has become his friend, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That disappears from the
sitting next
movie.
to him. Well, she does disappear, but she's sitting there next to him, and she has on jeans in class.
Oh.
Yeah. Wouldn't have happened.
Mhm.
No.
Didn't
Threw me right out of that movie because, man, we were
I didn't
not allowed
notice
to
it,
wear-
but yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There
No
weren't
jeans.
jeans back then. Yeah. Unless that's a rural
No
thing. I don't know, but
no
No.
slacks, no culottes, none of that stuff.
yeah. The house though, like
Yeah.
I actually looked up whether where Montana was in the Midwest, even though it's
Yeah.
north. It's not, but maybe it's a northern climate. I don't know. But those houses, like I've been in that house.
Mhm.
The outside though, particularly you were talking about the inside, but the outside, the brick and the landscape around it and everything just
Same
was
here.
so visceral. Yeah, it was
So
so
prairie
visceral.
prairie
It
house.
was
Is
the
that what they're
house
called?
that I grew up
Yeah.
Yeah.
in. It was the
Yeah.
house I grew
Yeah.
up in, too. Yeah.
When I liked
Uh,
just the sort of when he goes outside and she's doing the laundry with clothespin thing, you see just slightly where the neighbors, because they really don't. There's a few shots like when it starts snowing, you see the neighborhood too. But
That was
just
cool.
yes, the snow thing is really cool. But just
Yeah.
just the other houses that are just like, I mean, not just like it, but they're also of the time too. It's like
Yeah.
that was kind of cool to see. Like you're in this sort of world of the time, and and neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
Watch it
had
too,
the
like
feel.
50s.
And I love
Late
just
50s. Or,
the shots of even where the neighborhood and then just like the mountains, because it's in this Montana, like the
Yeah.
background of this wilderness kind of around it's a beautiful film visually speaking.
yes,
yes. And it's muted. It's very muted. Like the colors are
Yes.
muted for like, and it very much takes you to this sort of time of like it's
and
Everything's
pretty.
put you in the
washed out.
characters. Yeah, put
Antique.
you in the characters.
Mhm.
I liked.
It was filmed in Montana, but it was also filmed in Enid, Oklahoma.
Oh,
Yeah.
like what,
Because,
interiors
Did
or
you go to
something?
Montana.
In weather conditions.
Oh,
Yeah, because I've looked it up to see where
Isn't-
it was filmed, and it was Montana and Enid, Oklahoma, because of the weather.
someone had a story about
Montana's-
this. I'm trying to think of where I heard, because someone talked about this. I don't know if it was Andrew, because I know too many people in the sort of local industry. Now that you bring that up, it was
Yeah.
either Andrew or Debbie that told me about this movie, and I don't remember which one now. But like they had mentioned that, and I forgot that they did film
Let's
some of
film
that
there.
here. Yeah,
Yeah, there was.
I really do like. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Diane, because I'm going to change the subject. I can.
Go ahead. That's I'm done.
I really do like Paul Dano and Zoe Kazan's writing. If they are writing these together, there were several lines I thought were very intense and very thought provoking. And one of them I wrote down was, "I feel like I need to wake up, but I don't know from what or to." I think I felt like that most of my life. But I've come out the other side of it, I feel like. But I thought that is like a perfect description, of growing up or developing. And I think in the end, this idea of freedom versus family responsibility was another theme, right? It's something we all go through, the freedom to do whatever we want, but there's two things working against that, right? Your responsibility you feel to other people, and then of course getting your physical needs met. Eating, having a roof over your head, et cetera, et cetera. I thought was very, very intense in this movie, and I liked it.
I like that whenever, because he's sitting there and he's just like needing his mom to get like for dinner, what's for dinner, and then he has to take the responsibility himself. That was one of the sort of things of like everyone wants to sort of shirk off this responsibility of this kid, you
Yeah.
know, and it's yeah.
Of the family, yeah.
But that dad
Well,
runs
the
away
old-
to fight
the old man-
fires.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I
The
mean,
old
yeah.
man talking
Yeah.
about that too. The older man saying, I think it was an interesting line, and I'm not quite sure what they meant by it, but where he said the greatest thing he'd ever done was to go up in the airplane, cut off the engine, and just glide. And he said, but I was rejecting humanity, right? Because I was
Yes.
forgetting all about the people on the ground and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was an interesting theme. But
Yes, and that was definitely sort of
think
like
it's
one of the
missing.
points that they were sort of like, that was one of the like stop and hear this sort of person's perspective, as if like that meant a lot for the themes of the movie. And yeah, and that does warrant sort of dissecting of what he was sort of saying. And it was like, I don't know, you'd like the idea of responsibility and the idea of like, you know, personal freedom of like, you know, that you can sort of be carefree or whatever. And that's sort of the moments that you feel perhaps more in tune with yourself, but then like it's reckless to those that depend on you. And that the idea that like he felt more alive and more whatever in this time of cutting off the engine on this plane. But then he's sort of brought back by this idea that he has this intense amount of, you know, responsibility, businesses, and family and everything.
Very early on, too, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, again, turning to his 14-year-old son saying, what is a man entitled to? You know, that was kind of a theme. You know, what is a man entitled to? Am I entitled to a living wage? Going back to, you know, Diane's theme of money and so on and so forth. And it's like, well, again, that's a pretty heavy thing to lay on a kid. But I think overall, what I found, again, going back to Diane asking about only child, I think as a family, I want to try to get a handle on how I want to say this. I think as a family of three, you grow up much more together. Now, I can't say that I didn't have siblings, but that was a realization, is like the dynamics between you all grow up together.
I'm not sure
There's
if
less
growing
division
up, or is it
between-
There's
or
less
is it that
distance.
You have two grown-ups that are learning how to parent at the same time you're learning how to grow up, or that you're growing up.
Well,
Yeah.
but they're
Because
not
I know-
learning how to parent. Mine did not learn how to parent. They never really did.
Okay, so
So
your parents
it was
were
like-
18 when you were born, 20.
No, they were 25 and 26.
Okay.
And I
So
was
they were a
raised
little
mostly by my grandmother. Yeah, I was raised mostly by my grandmother, which did
And-
feel like a parent. My grandparents did feel like parents, but my parents felt more like siblings. That's why I said that psychologist said I was parented. I was treated much more as another parent, I guess. And in the end, you know, we developed life skills together. Now, I don't know if that happens in a family with you know, more siblings or not, but that's what it felt like to me. It was, we were more on a Cade, I think you said, to say distance. We were more on a level field of play than.
And I agree with that. I mean,
you know,
there are
parent-child.
parents, but like I do think the main thing I see with difference between with people with siblings and people not is like there's the ones with siblings that have parents. They seem to be very clearly there's parents operating on on different plans. There are planes. They're on different planes of like these are parents. They're on a different plane than us as the kids. Whereas those lines are a little bit more blurred with like a with an only child situation of like they're human beings. They're not like people I found like much more being fearful of like a parent sort of situation in a where they have siblings. I see that is not everyone's scared of their parents, but that is seemingly more often of a case of like whenever they are
The authority figure.
they're an
is
authority
more-
figure,
yeah,
which a lot of that's less so with like I agree that I went the only like I see them more as human beings than I think people with siblings see their parents as human beings.
Yeah, you're closer to being peers than a family with more children.
Just
And
slightly.
you don't want to be. That was a big thing for me, as I wanted parents. You know, it's not necessarily a good thing. I wanted parents. I think the boy in this movie wanted his parents to be He obviously wanted his parents to be his parents and a family unit, intact family unit. And even when one was gone, he still wanted the remaining parent to be a parent. And she wasn't acting like a parent. So, I won't give away the end, but, that's how he wanted to remember his childhood, right? Was as an intact family, which probably most kids do.
That's why he wanted the picture.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I was kept waiting for this photograph thing to, I'm like, where's this thread going of like, we just keep sort of, I'm like, and then it's like, okay. I mean, like, and at the same time, I'm like.
Now, I knew that was coming because the photographer said to him, people come to do this to remember something good in their lives. So I knew it was going that direction. Yeah.
It's going to end up this way, right?
Yes.
I kind of got that too.
Yeah.
But he wanted to have, family unit instead of, what he had.
And I love that
with who did not want to be responsible.
Yes. And I love just those different scenes of them coming through and then like kind of directly to the camera, like, and then the very, well, okay, we can't spoil too much, but yes, the ending's really good too.
It was really, could it have
visually.
been improved on Cade in any way? Like the last movie, you felt like it could have been?
I thought that we sort of lost the thread of him going to school. Like that sort of thread ended up going seemingly no, and I felt like I would have liked to have followed his journey there of the sort of point, but I understand it's not the sort of point of the movie, but just something a little bit more toward the second half of that. I kind of felt.
But wasn't
the
that kind
only
of the
thing
point?
they brought up at the end was that he was on the honor roll.
Yes.
But wasn't that kind of the point that the all this family drama kind of took over his life?
Yes, I agree. I do think that like I just I just wish I would have had that and it could have just been one scene, just extra of just to sort of kind of point that, or do something there of just. I want to know what this kid was doing with this with the school. I don't know. It was maybe just that's a personal thing, but I kind of was.
I kind of loved the last at the end there where he's in the bathroom and he's getting ready, and his dad says something about doing something after school. He goes, "I can't. I'm meeting up with Chloe." What was her name? Yeah. I'm meeting up with her, and now he's gone from being this 14-year-old kind of scared kid to being one that looks more like 16, and he's got his own girl.
He's growing up.
It's like, he's
because he's
going to be okay.
Yes,
he's going to be okay because now he's getting to be, the kid that he's supposed to be at this age.
Yes.
So I think that they did kind of give us that. Maybe they could have given us more of that, but yeah, I think they kind of tried to give it to us anyway.
Well, and my escape was school. That was my place because I didn't have parents. I don't want to say that my parents weren't that horrible. I'm not trying to make them out to be really terrible, but
my parents were great. I'll put that out there. I like my parents a lot.
Yeah, is this about the movie or is it about our parents? We're going to talk about here.
We keep switching back and forth. Yeah,
that's I think. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought now. But my escape was school, and I think they made that. That's where my authority figures were. Yeah. That's where my authority figures were at school. And I think I'm just realizing that now. That's what he liked. I think they, to Cade's point, maybe that would have been nicer to see. Was that a better environment for him? Was he getting something out of that environment that he wasn't getting at home?
And it seemed like we were setting up the fact that like, so we're moving into this new setting and like the sort of point of that, and then he's going to, and like it seemed like it was a thread that was sort of going to be set up as this sort of balance between that, and then like with this photography thing and this new job, like it's there, and I understand they're highlighting, they really want to focus in on the family, and that's sort of the point, and that would be the sort of, that's where your themes are and your driving force and everything, but I do think that like, it would have been interesting to see him in these different environments and him having to still, like, he has this responsibility for going to school. He's a kid. And then he has this work thing. And I just kind of, just a little bit more, just a little, I'm not asking for that to be the focus of the film, but just, that was just.
Because they just gave us a couple of scenes on that. Like when he didn't do his homework and she let him cheat off her test because he was so busy taking care of his mom that he didn't have time to do his homework. And they could have probably done 2 or 3 more scenes, but it really.
It wasn't that. Yeah, I understand from an.
They didn't hit you in the face with it.
Yes.
At all.
Diane's agreeing with
but
you.
It was obvious.
I hear that. Yes. No.
Actually, I'm just pointing out that the problem that he had with it was actually in the movie. It just was really
No,
small.
I understand what
Leading.
you're saying, and I understand that from a editing perspective of like you have to focus in on what your story's about, and that
Yes.
I understand that like if they even had those scenes, if they had them, it's fluff. It's not to get to point A to point B. If it's just talked about, you don't need to actually see it or whatever, like, because it's essentially, it serves the that this is consuming his life, this is his whole point. Like, I understand even from that perspective, if you're looking at it, and even if you completely shot these scenes, you have a story to tell, and that's your story, that it would have been unnecessary. But still, from a character perspective, and just from me being a weirdness, I like sort of seeing what these characters are doing even outside of what they're doing. Whenever I like a character, I'm like, I want to see what other things they're getting into or what the other parts of their lives are. And I find that in TV shows, and it's like, I understand there's a point even in my writing, I like exploring avenues that aren't even the point of the film. But it's just I like these characters a lot, and I want to see what else is going on in their lives to juxtapose what the most important things are.
Plus,
But
he was
what
very
surprised
afraid
me-
of moving again. He was very afraid of moving again, which
Yes.
kind of made it you think that he was enjoying his school life.
Yes, all that's just
You know,
hinted at.
I
Yeah.
love that. I
Or
love that
talked
the,
about.
the school room did look like a 1960s schoolroom. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, it absolutely looked like that. And then the thing though that I thought they probably could have explored more. I mean, I get his school and I get that his schoolwork is suffering because of this thing that's going on in his life.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was a kid, we weren't allowed indoors. You never saw kids inside. If it was
That's
light
true.
outside, you were outside. You were never spending a minute inside. You weren't allowed. So,
Yeah.
and I would think even only children wouldn't be allowed inside. I would hope. I mean, if that didn't just happen to those of us in family.
Yes and no. I was outside a lot, but then you're alone. And back then it was.
You'd have to
back
get
then it was
neighborhood
okay.
kids, yeah, or something.
And
Yeah.
in
then
my
it was
case, I
okay,
was
though.
too, because I had all brothers. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, my brothers didn't want to hang out with me. They just wanted to kill me. But yeah, we were. You
You
had
can
to
hear more
drink
about
rubber-
that on Diane's Kid and
Yeah.
Friends.
That's right.
right.
They we had to drink out of the water hose. You weren't even allowed to come in for a drink.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, or anything.
I
think-
wouldn't say I wasn't allowed, but you were definitely encouraged to be outside so the adults would be inside doing their thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and they did show like one or two scenes of that with he and the girl, you know, running through that field and stuff like that. That you know they were kind of in that situation, but they didn't make a point of it. Like
Yeah.
they did the laundry. I mean, they were really accurate on the cars and the laundry and the you know all these other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that that neighborhood didn't have any kids in it was weird.
Yes.
Weird.
Well, just-
It was
Really
more
kids?
rural. Yeah.
Yes, it was more rural.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Well, no, I grew up in a rural environment.
yes,
We lived
yes,
in a neighborhood.
yes. Yeah, they look.
There are kids everywhere. There's bicycles everywhere.
The neighborhood seemed to be completely vacant as well. Like
There
it
were
seemed
no
to be
people.
lifeless. Yeah, there was no
So
people.
that
That
could
was-
have been filmed in England.
But it also made it seem bizarre, like a bizarre, like it kind of made it have a
Yeah.
feeling, which I did enjoy. But now that you bring that up, it did seem like they didn't
Yeah, we were
know
all
it. He was completely alone in this neighborhood. Yeah, even him
Well, and
running
he was
through.
choosing to be. He
Yeah,
was choosing to be alone too. A lot of time, like with
Yes.
I thought that shot was really good when he was sitting on the football bench, right? And all the rest of them are out on the field, and he's just sitting on the bench.
They've
The
grown up
perspective
together.
of that shot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, they
that's
know
right,
each
yeah.
other. Yeah.
yeah, and they make a point by that is like yeah, he's already making friends with her or whatever
Yeah.
and everything, and he's like, what I'll tell you what I liked. So
Grew up
introduce to his father this is a father figure and everything, and he means a lot to him, and then like he's at work. And the framing of him where he's shining the shoes of the
Yeah.
wealthy people like that is like immediately, it
Yeah.
kind of puts in play. And that is with all the sort of family dynamics, there is this sort of theme of the haves and the have-nots as well that I thought was really, really, it's just kind of their secondary theme of the movie. And I thought that.
Yeah,
just
and
the
I was
framing-
actually shocked at that, like because
Mm-hmm.
scenes before that and the way he was interacting with
Yes.
his son and being a good parent, all of a sudden you see him shining shoes. It was like really kind of alarming, which I think it was supposed to be.
Yes. That was yes.
Well-
that was
Cleaning the mud out of people's golf cleats. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and you notice he stood up and his knees are covered in mud. You know, I mean, it's they're making some points there.
And he's just trying to make some other money on the side, and you're like, because like he's essentially betting on these games, and that's not allowed, and like just the sort
it
of
still isn't.
and just because there's a line there and everything, and I don't know, and then it's also very like the sort of hints at there's this past that purposefully was kept vague, which I liked, of why they moved around and everything, of like you can interpret it a few different ways. It's a job thing. He doesn't have, it's quite obviously because he probably lost a job or something, but whether that is because of some sort of violent thing, because there's also this sort of idea that later that perhaps he has some sort of violence that's underneath of him. You can also, I think, interpret it as that too, as some sort of.
I think you're right. That is kind of a gap. I assumed it was his pride. His pride would get in the way because they come back and offer him his former job, and he says, nope. I'm not going to work for people like that. So that's how I took it. But you're right. I think the movie could have done more with that. Like you're talking about the end, towards the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I do think that there's
where did that come from? Yeah.
There's different things of that. Like it's a prideful thing. There's the Carey Mulligan's character, sort of talks about how he will get in his head just different things, and he has to try that, and like he'll wants these sort of get rich quick sort of schemes and stuff, and so he'll try different things when something doesn't work out, and he'll go from one extreme to another, so it makes sense for him just to pack up his family and go to this thing that he's heard of. But then there's also the possibility that there's a sort of he has to leave a town, like there's just it's left open ended, and I think that's perfect. I don't want that explained. I thought that was perfectly left open.
I thought they actually built this character off my ex-husband. 3 years, 11 jobs.
Diane, it was my parents.
3 years and 11 jobs. I mean, and I could see, I totally got from Carey Mulligan's perspective that she didn't want to live that way. She'd been living that way, I guess, for 15 years because of their son was 14, right?
Yeah.
So she had been living for 14 years with a guy who probably didn't keep a job for more than 3 or 4 months. Whether it was wanderlust or whatever.
And she was so responsible at the beginning, too, in responding, to him losing his job and stuff like that. And then you just slowly see her, not cope with it very well eventually.
Yeah.
Well, actually, at the beginning when she was so supportive,
yes,
didn't that come off as an act? She had done it so many times.
No, I bought it. But
well, that's how she has to respond to that. Like she immediately her first response is, well, what did you do? Like as if this has happened before, that this had to be something he did. But then it's like, okay, this isn't going to go anywhere to sort of play to ask these questions. He's not going to, like, he told his son more than he told her about because he was there in that situation. But because also,
she and him have been through it so many times.
Yes, and so he kind of put up.
To me, she just went, okay. This isn't going to work out, so I'm going to use my standard. But honey, you are worth it, and you can do, and yada yada yada.
Their loss. It was, I think, the phrase or something similar like that.
15 years I've been saying this, and this guy still will not keep a job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw an hour and a half.
It's because he's too likable, right?
Yeah,
it's because he's
two jobs in that hour and a half, but
he's too likable is his problem.
14 years, yeah.
She had an interesting line. I thought she said to the son something about, she was trying to think of what the father was doing now. And she said, or the son asked, I wonder what he's doing now. And she goes, well, you either go crazy or he has a woman. And wasn't that projection? She wound up,
well, this is how
going crazy and having something on the side.
This is how she's going to justify in her mind to improve her own circumstance by going after a guy that's wealthy and using what she has to do that. Mm-hmm. But somebody had already beat her to it, and
the whole point of that is like that you can't sort of get to that sort of echelon of wealth or whatever. You can't. That's unattainable almost. That that he was just wanting disposable, seemingly, something that,
He was a player.
is a player.
He was a middle-aged or older.
Can you believe that he served in the military and never learned how to swim? Can you believe that? I think that probably was something he was just a ploy for her.
Yeah.
Like he sort of, because so you're too removed from that. Like, you're hearing her talk about how her perspective of what he told her and him telling that to the kid. I don't know. So it's like, it's kind of, you're hearing the sort of chain of that sort of happening. But the way that I interpreted that was he was just, doing, playing that for her. Mm-hmm. Which, the Y, she worked at the Y. We know a few people that work at the Y.
We do. Mm-hmm. Only they don't teach. Well, there is one that's over that we met that does the swimming and the water stuff. Yeah. But our friends are the executive directors of,
yeah. Social media stuff and different things. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our friend. We know some people that work at. We know people that work at the Y.
We know people that work at the Y. We're important.
But no, I really enjoyed this movie. We've talked about these movies for a lot. Tomorrow's a holiday, so I don't mind taking some time to talk about all this stuff and everything. So don't like.
Oh yeah, you don't have to work.
I don't have to work tomorrow, so I'm good.
Me either.
So just buckle in. Yeah, no.
No, I hamburger patties and cupcakes.
What?
I said I have to make hamburger patties and cupcakes.
Oh, do you have a thing tomorrow?
Family thing tomorrow. At my sister-in-law's house.
Those families work, man. Families are work, man.
Yeah, we learned a lot about different families and everything. I don't know if any other notes I have. I think it was shocking, sort of the amount that Jake Gyllenhaal is in this movie. It's not a lot. Yeah.
No.
So
he was too pretty. I'm sorry. He was too pretty to be in that role.
I thought they both looked of the time, like the idealized version of the time. And
he goes and he fights these fires.
Well,
right? And he comes back looking better than he did before he left.
They should have grimed him up or something. Yeah.
They grimed him up or.
Well, doesn't she tell him he smells like a campfire or something like that? Yeah. We don't know what he actually did with the fires either. I read when I was reading a description of the movie, it said something about he takes a menial but dangerous job, which I thought was an interesting combination. So it wasn't like he went off to be a hero,
Yeah.
They were, they probably he was in some support role or something, I don't know, but.
Yeah, was that like in the book or something?
Because I don't
think in the movie they really explained that. Yeah.
No, I went. It was just a blurb on when I Googled the movie or something. It said a teenage boy adjusts to his father going away to do a menial but dangerous job. I thought menial. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting word to put in there.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, likely he wasn't doing anything, hero-like. Mm-hmm. He wasn't skilled. He didn't have those kind of skills or training or,
Yeah.
So anyway, I can't say she was my favorite actress. I thought she was competent. I don't know who she is. I haven't seen her in other stuff, but
she's a great actress. I've seen her in. I think she's been better in other things. I think that I've seen her in. I think she's been in good in a few. I'll tell you, I get her confused. I think that she even did like a bit when she hosted Saturday Night Live, where her and Michelle Williams get confused, and it's like I do sometimes confuse them because like truthfully I have to look up every time who was in Promising Young Woman, and it was this one. It was Carey Mulligan was in that, but to me they look so similar to each other, and and one of yeah, so that's.
Oh, really? I know Michelle Williams much better, so I don't know that I would confuse them.
Yes.
Yeah, she was actually. It says she made her film debut in Pride and Prejudice in 2005. Joe Wright's Pride and Prejudice, which is kind of interesting. I remember her from The Great Gatsby.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Just because of the clothes she got to wear was stellar, and she was. Portrayed the character exactly how I had envisioned her reading the book.
World weary, in her head, sort of that sort of.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or whatever you have, but also flighty and kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see Suffragette? Ava, Suffragette?
I don't think so.
Meryl Streep
It's
was
what
in
my
that, right?
master's thesis was on, but I don't remember ever seeing the movie.
Yeah, Meryl Streep was in it.
I don't
Ellen
remember
Bonham
her in it.
Carter.
Yeah,
She was the lead character in it.
I don't remember her. Okay.
She's in a lot of period pieces. That's sort of what I've seen. It's like she plays people
Yeah.
of certain times, and I think that makes. She was in. Now that I remember that, like that was one of her debuts too. Was she was in two things. All of a sudden, now two things came up in my head. She was in. If anyone knows Doctor Who, she was in the Blink.
Yeah, she. Yeah.
That was where people commonly called the best episode of New Who is and she's the star of it, and the Doctor's barely in that episode, but it's about the angels or whatever those are called. I in another life I watched that show.
I did too, but it was so long ago I forgot it.
Yeah, I stopped in the Peter Capaldi era, and I was like, I think I'm done with this. Even despite the fact I really did like him, and he was one of my favorite Doctors, but that was not the point of what I was saying. He was also.
No, it
I've been derailed a few different times with my thoughts of that, but I forget what the other thing was that she was in. There was something else. I remembered all of a sudden.
Drive. She was at Drive.
Oh well, we haven't.
Shane, Far from the Maddening Crowd, Suffragette, Inside Llewellyn Lewis.
She was
Davis,
in. It was one of her earlier things. She was.
Mudbound.
No, it was earlier. It was real. It was an introducing role, if I remember correctly. She was the lead, but it was like an introducing Carey Mulligan. It was some education. Oh boy, it was something called like that.
You know what? I think I saw that. Something education, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't be
In Education.
An education, yeah.
In 2009.
She was the star, and she was listed last. Like if it's your breakout sort of thing, you kind of get listed last, and she was the star of it, and she was really good in that. And so whenever it was like the title things came up, I'm like, oh, she's gonna be in this. She's the star. Like they're gonna get rid of her. They're gonna kill the main character. But it was not. It was not that interesting of a movie. It was not. They didn't take that. It was just because it was her first movie role, and she gets last billed because of that. Yeah. Weird little film thing that happens rarely, but you'll see sometimes is they'll get last billing if it's their first film. It's like
I remember from Pride and Prejudice because there's two, and I go back and forth on which one that I think is the better of the two, and the one that she's in is the one with what's her name?
Actually, there's three, and there's three Pride and Prejudices at least.
Keira Knightley.
One way back, I think it was 1975, and my mother and I loved it so much. I got to say something nice about my mother since I've been so hard on parents. We loved it so much, like I couldn't watch the version with Colin Firth. Everybody loved it, and I couldn't even watch it, didn't get through it. So was she in the Colin Firth version?
No, she's way too young for that.
Okay, so there was another one after the Colin Firth version.
With Keira Knightley.
So are you talking about oh no, that's the movie. I know the movie. She was in that? She was in the Pride and Prejudice movie with Keira Knightley?
Yes, that's what I said. She was in Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley.
Yeah, I was thinking of a series. I wasn't thinking of the movie. What did she play in that? What did she play in that?
Bennett. She played Kitty Bennett.
Huh.
Like Kitty.
Okay.
You guys are speaking.
Right.
I read.
She was really good at it.
I was supposed to read that book in college. I read half of it and was like, I think I got the gist. I'll just spark notes the rest. I'm sorry for people who love that movie or book.
I kind of love this version of the movie because it has Matthew.
I did love that movie.
Yeah, and Rosamund Pike is in it. I mean, it has Rupert Friend. It has all these people that you see now, like Tom Holland was in it. I was reading through here, because they had Judi Dench, and how could you go wrong with her?
Yeah,
ever.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like the people that are now big stars, were in this movie. Yeah. So.
No, I did really love that movie. There were a couple series. That's where I That's where I get caught up.
I never saw the series.
That movie.
Yeah. This is the one where my little nieces were still young, and this is the first movie that I had them come watch with me. That was a romantic movie. It wasn't like an animation, whatever the kids like to watch. And they were probably 15 and 14, maybe 14 and 13. And I would have to stop it every now and then and explain to them what they just said. They didn't understand at all. That wasn't the dialect, it was the words. Yeah. Okay, this is what he meant when he said this. Yeah.
Well,
anyway, we digress. Let's go back to wildlife.
I do want to say we are officially the longest episode we've done. So
I feel like I'm going to get kicked out.
You're going to have to edit this one.
We're going over time.
That's right. No,
I don't have my clock. I can't. My clock
we're not even in the last section yet, guys. So, but no, I enjoyed it. I don't know if there's anything else to sort of say about the. I mean, we could just, we're not at times we're not really talking about the movie. We're just going on different things. But yeah,
I have seen family dramas that were much worse.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would recommend this one over many family dramas that have probably got greater audiences or bigger audiences.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, it has so many aspects of it to look at it from that it's just like, I find it very fascinating. I think it's, one of the greatest things or whatever. No, I don't, but but it's great. I do really like it. And I hesitate I don't even know which one I would like the most out of the two that I watched. I liked them both a lot. We'll see later when we rank these things or whatever, if one of these or both of them get in the top
later,
5.
How much later?
No, we rank. Well, I'm just saying, Diane and I at the end of this season we'll tell our top 5.
I thought you meant tonight.
No, we're not gonna. Yeah, later. No. I was just at the end of the thing we'll see if them. I mean, currently, I mean they're pretty. I mean, given we've only watched 6 movies now, but they're. I think they're both in the top 5 so far.
Certainly in the top 5. Yeah. That's easy to say.
Yeah, we'll see if something else knocks them out or whatever. But I did really like. I like that this one has a lot of. You can look at it from just sort of the period piece part of it, and it's really cool there. Visually, it's really great. I found it to be very, a great character study of the different characters, and I like the perspective that it did. I am at times a very stickler of perspective. If you're going to put your character as a perspective, there are times, if I did have to say I understand the point of it, but at times it broke away from that being the perspective whenever they but there were momentary breaks and they were necessary for the plot. And so I'm not going to count it against it. But times when they're applying for their job, the mother's applying for a job, the son's not there to sort of get that perspective. But that was important. I like those scenes. So I'm not gonna fault the film for that. That was just me making a mental note.
Don't get Diane riled up.
No, it's fine, Diane. It was perfect. I'm just saying. It's just one of those things. That's just in a worse movie or in a movie that is just whatever. It was fine, and I liked the movie, and I'm not gonna fault it because at the end of the day, I did really enjoy it. Like I said, a lot of different things. There was perspectives and the themes, and any time that there's the theme of sort of classism and different things like that, that's my bread and butter. Same with family dynamics, my bread and butter. So this movie has a lot of pluses for me, which is why I'm gonna give it the fire emoji.
Oh, wow. I knew you were going to go with that. Yeah, I knew it. I knew it.
Fire.
I think we all have to do fire tonight for this one.
Well, Diane has to do drinks, but you can do fire, okay. Ava. Ava, what are you going to give this?
Oh, now I have to think of something.
I'm going to give it a beer.
Okay. Do you want just multiple beers?
Beer? Well, I would give it 3 stars, so give it 3 beers.
Okay. 3 beers.
Okay.
I always have to look and see what emojis are available.
Uh-huh. The beer mugs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all there is.
Yeah. So not little bottles? Is there? I don't know.
There's no bottles.
You know the drink emoji so well.
Yeah. Because there's only 5. But, I wish they had a bottle of Rolling Rock. That's what I really want. But, oh well.
Yeah. Ava, what are you gonna give it?
It's interesting because I just wonder what I would have.
I think you moved the camera. Yeah, I thought you did that on purpose.
No.
Oh,
There we go.
I've been shifting. I apologize because of my back. So I've been trying to stay in frame though. I think it's interesting. I think because I related to it so much, I'm not sure how. I would give it 4. Let's say there should be a dancing couple in there.
Okay.
Cade. There's that one scene. You can find the dancing couple.
The dancing couple.
Yeah.
I felt so sad for that kid.
Dance with your mother.
Yeah. I just wonder if I would give it I would give it at least 3. I think because I related to it so much, I'm giving it 4.
I don't see a dancing couple. There's individual dancers. There's like the woman dancer.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see one.
Okay.
Would you say 4?
Do the woman dancer. That'll work.
There's a guy and a woman. There's 2.
You can do one
But of the 2, I probably enjoyed the first one just because it was a comedy.
Yeah.
But I think because I related so much to this one, I thought it was done so well.
Yes. 4. Yeah. No, yeah, I don't know. I don't know which one I preferred. I think I'd had to sort of sit with them a little bit more than I have. But I had a busy weekend. I haven't really, I watched the films in between and different things, and so haven't had the films to be able to sit with me as much as other ones have. But I did really enjoy them. They really made you think, and they both were very specific things that these characters went through, and so they were very specific, but I think there was universal things that anyone could sort of see. I think that's the brilliantness of doing family stories, is that everyone has a family and different problems, and you can sort of see different things that you relate to, even in specific instances of like, this isn't at all, none of us are these specific things that happen, but there are things that you can pull from and be like, oh, well, that rings true, or that's really interesting, or this reminds me of my parent, or this reminds me of someone else's sort of story or whatever. But it's I do love that that vehicle to tell stories. It's really powerful. Great. Anything else you guys want to say before we go into our preview time? Because we do have another section. Okay. Great. We're going into preview time. Here we go.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Hey, when it comes to entertainment, you just can't beat a good film. I didn't do the accent really that time, but oh well. I did want to say, so I think we all recommend both movies. We didn't do our recommendation. We all recommend both movies, so that was so that's kind of might be a first that everyone, I don't really know, but we all liked both of the movies. Kind of a fun thing. And also Wildlife free on Tubi. We like to say that I don't know if you guys watched it that way.
Yes, I watched
Hopefully you watched it that way, because otherwise I looked it up previously and it was like $10 to, you only had to buy it, and I was like, what? And then I was like, no, I looked it up. I was like, it's on Tubi. So.
Or you had to sign up for a free, AMC or.
Oh, really?
IFC.
Oh.
You could do that. But no, I watched it on Tubi.
I like Tubi. I mean,
it's free.
It's free. They do put ads in the middle, but it's kind of, I'm okay with that. It's not at this point. It kind of gives a little break, and you get to, like I think you said before, Diane, you get to do some things in between there, and it's.
That's right.
Yeah.
You go refill your water.
Yeah. So enjoy. I enjoy Tubi, so you can watch it there. Anyways, next week it's Adam Driver night. So that's.
Can't wait for that.
Can't wait for that. It's 2 back-to-back Adam Driver movies. We are watching Patterson and The Report are our 2 Adam Driver movies. So watch those. I don't really know what those are, but you guys can figure it out where they're at in streaming.
Are there any dogs in it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no. I know very little about. I know the second one is about torture. It's about the torture report. That's
Annette Bening's in it too.
Annette Bening's in it though.
Yeah, she plays Diane Feinstein. The report is the report of the torture.
Guantanamo Bay, is that part?
Guantanamo
Yeah.
Bay and the torture that got approved by the Bush administration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's supposed to be really good, but I don't know.
It'll be real fun. Real fun.
Fun, uplifting.
Uplifting. It's Adam Driver night.
It's Adam Driver night. True. Adam Driver night.
We don't know exactly. So Gus, speaking of people, that's what the why. Gus will be joining us, and he should be fun. Should be fun. We don't know if we'll be in our studio or if we'll do this virtually. We'll see, and we'll discuss later.
I love seeing you in your studio, but I forgot to give a shout out to Ollie. I did enjoy seeing Ollie back.
Yes, I moved over.
Behind.
So you can see.
I saw him earlier. Yes. Thank you.
I moved over.
Hi, Ollie.
So you can see Ollie.
There's Ollie.
He said hi.
There he is. Hi, Ollie.
He didn't bark tonight.
No, there was nobody out there to bark at. Right now, he's telling you that he's so disappointed he has not had dinner.
We've kind of ran a little long, Ollie. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He does look like my cat, and my cat has given up on trying to get me to feed him. Yep.
Yeah. Well, great. Yeah, join us next week for those two films. You can watch them beforehand and everything. It's and join us with Adam Driver night. There we try to do some different themes as we do sometimes if it's a similar actor. With Colin Farrell night, it was also that director. Today was family dramas and in particularly, I guess, infidelity within families. Didn't realize that was going to be a theme, but that was.
Didn't think it was.
Yeah. But it did end up happening. But yeah.
And that 70% statistic I gave earlier
was, that's right.
Hang on. That was men who admitted to it. So take what you want from that.
It could be much higher.
Yeah.
Much higher.
Yeah.
Patterson
Not that women don't cheat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The report I think is an Amazon original, so it's on Amazon Prime. You can watch. I do not know where Patterson is. Did you look that up, Diane?
It's on Amazon.
It's also
Prime.
on Amazon.
It's a subscription, so it could be IFC or anyone like that, and then it's on Vudu for $14.99. Wow.
Yeah, well, don't do that.
Don't do that one.
It looks like it's just on Prime. It's an Amazon original as well. Patterson.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
So it's also Amazon original night. I think.
Cool.
Jeff.
It is.
Yeah. Think Jeff Bezos will sponsor us for our Amazon original night?
I don't think Jeff Bezos.
Didn't he leave?
Yeah, that's true. He left and went into space
anymore.
Yeah.
He doesn't run it anymore. He still owns. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Well, we're also streaming on Twitch. Speaking of Jeff Bezos and Amazon, also owned by the Amazon Corporation.
Oh, that's true.
We didn't mention our Twitch audience. Hi, Twitch, if you're watching us.
Hey, Twitchers.
But anyways, we're wrapping up here. Be sure, as we say, like, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, click all the buttons, thumbs up, anywhere that you see where that is. And also, thanks for watching and joining us. This is Double Feature Movie Club. We're here every Sunday. We live stream every Sunday night, 6 p.m. Central, on youtube.com/Cade Thomas. And then we're also now on Twitch, on twitch.tv/the Cade Thomas. We had to put it the in front of us because some other Cade Thomas had a Twitch channel.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So.
You're kidding.
Now, the odds of that.
Nobody watches it.
No one watches it.
Really?
They haven't broadcast in a. Oh no, I'm saying that.
Cade, CADE.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's becoming. Yeah, I had to. Facebook, I got it before, but we're putting the in front of most things except for YouTube. I was able to get that. So yeah, I mean it's becoming a more popular name with kids. I see a lot of kids have the name Cade now. It's very popular for Gen Zers, Zoomers, if you will, as Julianne Moore coined the term. So great. Okay. So, and then also, sorry, I didn't say that. Next day is a podcast. If you want to listen to this again, or if you, that's a lot of people listen to it that way. Jennifer, who we had on before, listens to it as a podcast.
She is going to love our disagreements.
Yeah, no, it was a lively time this time. I really enjoyed this episode. Good discussion. We'll have Ava on again later in this, season or whatever, what we call this half season or whatever. I don't remember what movies they are, but when they are, but it is later, and it'll be soon. So Ava will be back on. Thanks, Ava, for joining us. Did you enjoy it?
Thank you for having me. I always have fun, and I'll see you in the chat.
Yeah, I'll see you on the chat. Yes, our chat's lonely without you, Ava. It is. Most people don't join live.
Good to see you, though.
They watch.
It's so good to see.
Yes.
Yes, it's good to see. Cool.
Ditto.
Great. Well, see ya, everyone. Bye. See you next week.
Bye.